What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, Super Edition, because not only is it episode 184 of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, but it is the co-branded, it is kind of the hybrid of the ECB podcast mixed with the House of College Hoops official Sweet 16 prediction show and preview show. Of course, I'm your host, Josh Burton. Joining me today is my esteemed colleague of panels, or my panel of colleagues, however you want to say that, Mr. Peyton Burton, Trevor Everett, Michael DeRosa. He's been on here enough. He might as well be Team ECB, but he is from the network since this is like a co-branded show. Fellas, obviously we are one weekend into the NCAA tournament. We have our Sweet 16 set. The show is titled Super Sweet 16. We are going to talk all about that. I do want to ask you guys, though, after the first kind of weekend of action is over with, and we're down to the last 16 teams remaining, your just kind of basic overall thoughts from the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament.
I'll go first because I've been pretty vocal about this on a Facebook group, on a message board, and Twitter. I love the NCAA tournament. I love March Madness and everything it brings in, but this tournament, the first couple rounds were pretty boring. Outside of like maybe 5 to like 8 games, there was a lot of blowouts, more blowouts than I ever remember in the first 2 rounds in a long ass time. And there wasn't any really buzzer beaters. You had like one game winner, which we'll probably talk about later in the Colorado-Florida game. Other than that, it was a lot of ass whoopings, and I love upsets. There wasn't a lot of them. There was definitely some good ones. One of them cost me my bracket challenge. Thanks a lot, Michael DeRosa, you son of a bitch. You cost me my bracket. Thanks a lot for that. But other than that, I love the NCAA tournament, and I think Sweet 16 Elite 8 is definitely going to be better. But other than that, those are just my quick thoughts.
My quick thought is Peyton is an adult and can make his own choices. It's not my fault that he sucks at what he does. The people out here.
Trev?
I don't know what commentary I'm going to be able to add at this point, so I'm just excited to jump into it. I vehemently disagree with the boring part of it. Like, I get there was no buzzer beaters, but, I mean, this was
There was one last night. There was a buzzer beater last night.
We're going to get into it. I understand the sentiment. I do. I understand some of it, but at the same time, like, I mean, look, Auburn lost in the first round, for crying out loud. Like, that's a national championship pick. That's a really big deal, right? We have a Cinderella still alive. Like, now, do we have only one Cinderella technically still alive? Sure, I could see that argument, but at the end of the day, I'm not here to argue that because that was a great time. I had a good time, and that's all that matters. If Peyton had a great time still, regardless, I'm sure it wasn't boring. It was boring not entirely, right? You still enjoyed yourself, which is all that matters.
No, and so Peyton and I have talked about this, and I'll just elaborate real quick. The whole tournament in itself is not boring per se. The first round was a lot of fun. I think for me, the second round, when we're going to talk about it, because there was so many blowouts and it wasn't a whole lot of drama outside of, we'll talk about Texas A&M Houston, and there's a few of them. I think because there was such a variety of the top teams showing why they were top teams, the second round was one of the more boring second rounds that I can remember. But it does set up a great Sweet 16 Elite 8 that I think is going to be far better than the first 2 rounds. We are going to get into that. A couple things before we start to break some of this action down from the first weekend. And by the way, we are live across all social channels, the ECB, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're on the House Enterprises Twitter. We're across all of it. If you guys, like always, follow along with us, leave your comments below in the chat. We will get to them. Before I ask you guys anything that kind of stuck out surprise in the first weekend of the tournament here, since we are talking about upsets, I said this a few years ago, and I stand true to this, and I'll explain if you have questions and it don't make sense. I want to ask you guys, though, are too many upsets in the NCAA tournament a good thing or a bad thing? I will explain my reasoning after I hear your guys' answer to that.
I can take this one first, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think it's a good. I mean, look, upsets are always fun, but also it's also really fun to have like some of the best teams play against each other. So really, I'm just good with whatever happens. So just be great, just win games. That'd be my answer. And upsets are always fun, but it's also fun when we have like games like Houston, Texas A&M, where 2 teams who were supposed to be there show up. So whatever happens, and I'm good with it, is my answer.
I've thought long and hard about this because I was at a Final Four last year, my first ever one, and it was a 5 seed, an 8 seed, remind me, somebody?
I think it was 5-8, 5-4.
Yeah. So there you go. Like, and it was an incredible experience. where we had a blowout with a team that probably wasn't a 5 seed or 4 seed, whatever the heck they were, right, in the national championship game. So I immediately when you sent this, I was like, no. But then I was kind of like, I thought about all the factors, and ultimately it doesn't really matter, because it ultimately ends up evening out. Last year was the outlier. Last year was the ultimate, oh my God, they all actually kind of made it really far. We all didn't really expect it. What the heck happened? I ultimately went with no, because it seems like ultimately still the high seeds win. I think the last 24 national champions were a 1, 2, or a 3 seed. So ultimately, my answer is no, because I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's fun. That's what makes the tournament so great. So my answer is no.
Well, see, this is why I wanted to ask, Peyton. I think you're going to lie on my side on this. And this is why I want to ask, because I think it's a great question. When you do look at last year, it was ultimately fun. But when we talk about this tournament, this is a pretty chalky tournament. We're going to get into it. The highest seed remaining is the ACC tournament champions, ACC champions, since ACC acknowledges the tournament champions as the overall champions. That's the highest seed remaining. Then after that is another ACC team that was good enough, and it's not really too big of an upset. The point being, I think we're set for an incredible Sweet 16 Elite 8, because the top teams for the most part did win. And I've said this for a couple of years when it kind of dawned on me a few years back. We all love upsets. The first round upsets, especially when people fill out the brackets. We talked a whole show about it last week about potential upsets and all that, spoilers. But if you get too many, I think 2 or 3 Cinderellas are perfect. But then it screws up. If they go too far, then it screws up potential matchups that we really want to see, that we've been dying to see potentially all year. And so that's kind of my thinking. I'm like, I love the upsets. But if we get too upset heavy, then it screws up the potential down the road. And it sets up for let's say Yale did beat Auburn and then they end up making the Sweet 16. I mean, that's a great story to make Sweet 16, but it probably is a cakewalk for the next person they play. So I like upsets. I just don't like too many of them, because I do, at the end of the day, when we get to later rounds, want to see the best versus the best, and let's crown a proper national champion. DeRosa, you got your hand up like at school. Go ahead.
Yes. Mr. Burton, first time, long time. Do you actually like upsets?
I do like upsets. Yes, I do. And we're going to talk about this. I know where you're going. We're going to talk about this. I've never had a problem with upsets. I've never... the more I thought about it, being in this and watching the tournament my whole life, we want to see the best versus the best. If this tournament, for instance, right, we're getting some incredible Sweet 16 games. Illinois, Iowa State. We're getting the rematch of the national champion, San Diego State, Houston, Duke, et cetera, et cetera. But imagine if it's different. Like I said, Yale's there instead of San Diego State. No offense, Yale. That's another romp for UConn. What if Duquesne beat Illinois and we get Duquesne, Iowa State? And I mean, we could go Oakland if they would have beat North Carolina State, going against Marquette. And the tournament's filled with those, as opposed to getting these incredible matchups we're going to get. That's all I'm saying. I like the upsets. I just don't like them when they go too deep and there's too many of them. If it's one, it's great.
So my opinion on this changes year after year based on the teams in the field. This year it changes. I do love upsets. I do love upsets, and I'll get to DeRosa for you here in a minute after I finish my point. I do love upsets. Last year I loved the fact that there was no 1 seeds in the Final Four. Love that. This year it changes because UConn is on the verge of going back-to-back. They're looking like the most dominant team in the country. I want to see them get challenged. I don't want to see Yale play UConn in the Sweet 16. I want to see Auburn face UConn in the Sweet 16. I want to see San Diego State face UConn in the Sweet 16. I want to see these guys, and if they beat them, so what? I want to see them actually get challenged on the way to potentially going back-to-back like Florida did in 06, 07. That's my opinion on that. I love the upsets, but it changes year after year. And Josh, you also mentioned, we'll talk about that game later. I'm just going to get him back real quick. The only 2 words you need to say to shut his ass up is #Dunk City.
Well, hey,
I'm just surprised that Yale was mentioned this many times in 9 minutes. That's honestly what I'm the most surprised. I think you both combined to say Yale 15 times in the last 2 minutes. I'm surprised they've been mentioned that much for a second round upset.
We've got to give them their love, and to be completely honest, they were the first team that popped in my head. I couldn't think of too many.
I could think of another one.
We didn't have a whole lot of upsets.
I could think of another one.
Duquesne.
Okay. Last thing before we do kind of look back at the first round, just as a whole, anything that kind of stuck out, surprised you, whether it be games, players, way things were officiated, tournament sites, anything that you can kind of think overarching that stood out, surprised you from the first weekend.
DeRosa, I have nothing serious to say, so I'm just going to say it, and I'll let you have your moment here.
Yeah.
How quickly these NIL deals happen. It feels like all these guys that were first round. I mean, this is an unserious point, but also a serious point. Like Gonky or Golky or whatever the hell his name was.
Yeah.
Like he signed an NIL deal in less than 6 hours after the game.
They were in the lobby. Like he filmed the NIL deal in the lobby where the players' hotel thing is, which is brilliant.
Not just one. It's not just one. He signed multiple, and that's what was like kind of my whole thing was like, was it something pre-lined up? Yeah, probably, but it's like. I just still think it's nuts how quick those things can get done, where a lot of these guys don't have agents, especially, a 6-year senior on a team like Oakland. I just was fascinated by that.
No, that's a great point. And how smart is it, too, of what is it? It was not Tax Slayer, one of those. TurboTax, because they said that Golky looks like a future accountant, and then it kind of plays in like that's
tax season is less than 30 days away. Like it's all like ridiculous marketing. I'm not saying it's bad. I just think it's crazy how quick it happened.
The one thing I will say, if you and Peyton or DeRosa, you and Peyton have some, is I know we always have staggered start times and some start as late, real late, and then we get over with. I don't think the first round and second round, the last game got over with until like damn near 1 o'clock Eastern. I mean, we got to figure something out about maybe pushing it up a little bit, especially on a Sunday night. We shouldn't be staying up on the East Coast till 1 a.m. to watch the final of the game. That's the only thing I'll say.
So, yeah, I got two things. One, both actually in the second round because they really stood out to me. One is, why do we have one game at the beginning of the day that plays in full, nothing else on? Then after that, another game that plays out in full, nothing else on. Then like 3 games at once.
Yeah.
YouTube TV.
Stagger it a little better.
YouTube TV, that's the answer.
Yeah, we could stagger it better there. Two, and this play, I swear to God, is repeated in my head 1,000 times, and I cannot get the clip. I'm just going to have to watch the game back and get the clip there. Did you guys watch the end of Creighton, Oregon?
Yeah.
Did you, like the last inbound of regulation when they ended up inbounding it to Dante? He has a 1-and-1 and he misses the front end. Do you guys remember what I'm talking about? Like when Dante missed the free throws?
I'm wondering where you're going, yeah. Why
didn't no, it wasn't Shelton. Shelton was hurt at the time. Rigsby and Cousinard did not move on the inbound. They just stood there for 3 seconds. It's played in my head 100 times. They didn't fucking move. That was the game right there. They didn't move. I don't know. Did they know like it was being inbounded? I was baffled. Dante was the only guy who came to the ball. So like, it's not Shea Evans' fault. It's not Dante's fault that he wanted to get the ball inbounded so his team didn't lose. I have no idea what happened there. It's replayed in my head about 100 times. Not trying to discredit Creighton. They were excellent down the stretch of that game. And the one main question we had with Creighton is their depth and how could they go a full 50 minutes? They went a full 50 minutes and they were the better team in the end. What? I don't get what happened with Oregon there. It blows my mind. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, we can talk about that when we get there, but I say let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's start kind of like we did last week. Let's start where the reigning champs and the overall number 1 seed lies in the East region. Obviously, we're not going to break down every game. You guys have had the 4 days to watch these games, but we're going to pick and choose and kind of talk about some superlatives here. And let's start with the East region, fellas. What stood out to you in this region? I mean, obviously, I think we're all going to talk, and here's another plug to Yale. Yale was probably the biggest upset in that region, right? We can talk about Yale, but besides that upset, anything else stick out to you? Because I have a storyline that I'm just amazed with. Not that it's surprising, but just how damn good this team has looked in this East region. So I'll put it up to you guys first. Anything in the East region as a whole through the first 2 rounds that stood out to you?
Yeah, that Drake couldn't beat Washington State. I know the entire country and probably 60% of Europe was probably on Drake to beat Washington State, it felt like. And I'm really surprised and sad that obviously ended the DeVries era at Drake, who obviously is now both DeVries, both Tucker and Darian are both now at West Virginia as of today. So, yeah, I'm just surprised, honestly. I know Washington State's defense is really good. That's something that a lot of people, I think, were undervaluing in that matchup. I think because, again, 90% of people were picking Drake, it felt like. And, I was just really surprised that they didn't win. Obviously, do I think that they beat Iowa State? It just robbed us of the many storylines. At some point, I was going to bring up, like, all the storylines that we talked about on the House of College Hoops show about how many of them are just no longer in play anymore, which is obviously very sad. But that was one of them. Just the fact that we didn't get Drake Iowa State in Omaha in the round of 32 for probably what would have been the best environment in all of the country, except for the fact that Grand Canyon exists, and they had the best environment everywhere they were. So just as a little follow up there, but yeah, that was
Trevor.
that was
Real
the
quick,
thing that surprised me.
That's a good point, because this is 2 years in a row now that we've all really liked this Drake team. We love Tucker DeVries. We talked about it on last week's show. They were a betting favorite amongst a lot of us for a sexy upset to beat Miami. They lose it. They were a big upset favorite to beat Washington State and maybe even make a run to this upcoming week in the Sweet 16, and they fell short again. Do you feel like a team like a Drake that's a consistent tournament team that comes in with a lot of promise but kind of underperforms when they get to the big stage? Do you feel like this is kind of like just a reoccurring theme, bad timing, bad luck? I mean, what do you think goes into that?
It's tough for me to answer because, my ultimate answer is I don't think I think they're actually the exception to the rule because, I mean, with the way the turnover is in college basketball, right? Name me another example like them in the last 5 years that we've just seen show up continuously and not make it and not win it. Like, ultimately, somebody breaks through, right? Like, but then there's such a high turnover of, say, the Horizon League, right? We're a team that we talked about all year about how competitive that league was. And then the team that was ultimately the best one came out and ultimately won a game. But there's many conferences you could say that about, right? Charleston, as an example, is actually they're a perfect example of a team that I guess you just laid out. Yeah, but that just speaks to good coaching and of how good the CAA is. But it also speaks to the fact that you're never going to get better than an 11 seed. You're just not. So I don't think much about it. I just think about enjoy these opportunities while we have them, because a Drake making it back to back like that, Charleston making it back to back like that, where Coach Kelsey might not be the coach there in the next 48 hours. And I just don't know. I just don't know how it turns out. I don't have a great answer for you. I just think it's just enjoy it while we have it.
I think it's a testament too that just how hard sometimes we take for granted that this team should win, or we think it's hard to win games in this tournament. No matter who you are at this point, it is hard to win games in this tournament. Peyton, you haven't said anything in a minute. Kind of your overall, what stood out to you from the East region from the first two games?
Yeah, Northwestern FAU. Overtime game. This is a game I was excited for. I thought Boo Boo was going to show out, and he had 22 points. Was very quiet. 22 points. He wasn't the star of the show for Northwestern. It was Lamborg, how the hell you say his last name? 11-19 from the field, 3 of 8 from the three-point line, 27 points. This kid came out and he balled out. And the reason I wanted to bring this game up is because, for one, it did go into overtime. But FAU, I don't know if this is a Dusty May or if this is a John L. Davis having a brain fart. 5 seconds left. 5 seconds left to go in regulation. He is walking the ball down the floor. What in the hell are you doing? I don't remember if FAU had a timeout or not. But either way, even if they did, he's walking the ball down the floor, and I don't know who's on the announcer team. I don't know if it was Kevin Harlan, whoever it was screaming at you, what are you doing? You're wasting too much time. It reminded me so much of the R.J. Hunter game winner for Georgia State against Baylor in 2015 or whatever it was, where he wasted so much clock, but he hit the shot. John Davis pulls up right in front of whoever it was being contested. I don't think he even hit rim. I'm pretty sure airball. It was just a poor decision on his part, and they ended up getting pretty much an ass whoop. 19 points scored for Northwestern. They stretched out in overtime. But I don't know what John L. Davis was thinking there, and I don't know if that's a Dusty May not coaching him up well or whatever the case may be. I tell you, that was awful.
DeRosa, it's the thing that's undefeated. In the game situations in college basketball, they settle for the worst shots 99% of the time. It's a college basketball epidemic. They think that they're Kobe Bryant with the ball in their hands and
Wade Taylor.
Wade Taylor. Yeah, well, exactly. We're going to talk about that. And they just take bad shots, and it's college basketball year after year, game after game, bad shot after bad shot. But what stood out to you in the East region from rounds 1 and 2?
Yeah, I got a couple things. Yeah, it's okay, Trevor. I saw that tickle in your throat. Don't worry. You're good. I got a couple things. One, I wanted to pick Washington State the entire time, and I let everyone talk me into Drake, and I just feel like an idiot for that. So
he's a big boy. Remember, Peyton? He's a grown man.
Oh, I am a grown man. It is my fault. 100% it is my fault. It's my fault. Don't get it twisted. It is my fault. It's just I feel like an idiot watching that game. Number 2, the Boo Booey. Did you guys see the clip of Boo Booey coming off the court?
Good. Point that out. That's a good thing. I've seen that. Yes.
So Boo Booey is this is the last time Boo Booey is checking out of a game in a Northwestern jersey. Chris Collins pulls him aside. He checks him out with about a minute and a half left. The game was well in hand. And he just says, dude, we fucking did this together. I love you. We did this together. This was.
I love that, man.
It was awesome. That's what college basketball is about. That just seeing guys grow over the 4 years. That's what makes a sport special. It really does. So that really stood out to me. That was awesome.
That
Just the
emotional
connection you build with
connection.
these guys. It's everything. Everything.
I mean, think about the history Boo Buie and Chris Collins made together. I mean, obviously with everybody else, but they made back-to-back tournaments for the first time in Northwestern history. Like that's an important deal. They were at the top of the Big Ten standings, had a chance. So yeah, that's a cool deal. I'm glad you shouted that out. I'm going to talk about the team that nobody's mentioned yet. And it's not that it's surprising. They had quote unquote favorable draws, even though Morehead State gave them a game for a while, like I thought they would. And then they got fortunate in a way to play Duquesne and blew them out. But Terrence Shannon Jr. is probably the best offensive player in the college in this tournament. 26 points against Morehead State against a quality opponent, and then follows it up with a 30-piece against Duquesne in a rout. Illinois is dangerous when they play like this, and TJ Shannon is scoring the ball, puts his head down, and then he's making his shots. Marcus Thomas. Illinois has got a real chance. I cannot wait for here in a minute when we preview the Sweet 16 in this region. Illinois was, to me, outside of UConn, obviously, they were the star of this region, and I think they are a real threat to get out of this region when we preview it. We talked a little bit about the upsets. I mean, there was only the two big ones, Yale over Auburn and Duquesne getting a win, so there wasn't a whole lot in upsets. Outside of Terrence Shannon, players that stood out in this region, do you guys? Anybody really stand out that you want to talk about, shout out?
I mean, I'll shout out Morehead State, how they put up a fight against Illinois. I mean, I know it was a pretty collective effort there. I don't have the stat line in front of me, but yeah, I mean, look, you could sit here and what's up?
Nothing. Sorry, I was thinking.
You could sit here and pick, I'm sure you could pick anybody from any of these games. I'll give a shout out to them because the fact that they were the most competitive game out of the two is impressive.
Minix got tired. You could tell there his shots started going short. I mean, that's no easy feat going against Coleman Hawkins and all those guys. They'd switch out on you, but I thought they gave a great showing, and I was proud of that pick I made. I thought that they would give them a battle, and they did. I thought Morehead State, even in this little next thing I was going to ask, I think they were one of the biggest winners, even though they lost. I thought they gave a hell of a fight.
I don't know how to say this dude's name, but shit, I'm going to try my hardest. Pula Kitas from Yale. Yeah. 28 points, 10 of 15 from the field. He was the catalyst for them upsetting Auburn. What a performance out of him. He's definitely a player that needs more love because he played amazing in that game.
Shout out Isaac Jones at Washington State, too. He was excellent. Big body inside. He was the reason they didn't win in that game against Drake. He ended up fouling out Brody. That made the difference in that game. And then he played pretty well from what I was seeing against Washington State. So, and Jalen Wells, excuse me. That kid might be a pro someday.
Who am I as the Mountain West apologist to not shout out Jaden Ledee for having 32 and an almost lost to UAB in the first round? They don't win the game without him. So have to give a shout out to the guy the All-American.
So I mentioned Morehead State. Even though they lost, I thought they gave up a hell of a fight for the OVC champions there against the Big Ten champions. I thought they were my big winners and it's weird because, they didn't advance or nothing like that. But would San Diego State be your biggest winner of this region, all things considered? Because they did almost lose to UAB, and then they got a favorable matchup against Yale, and they followed up with a blowout. They're back to the Sweet 16, and they're right back in the mix. Would San Diego State, for you guys, be probably the biggest winners, not named UConn, in this region?
Probably. I mean,
yeah,
they
probably.
Good round one performance. They were able to get Ledee the ball in the high post, and that really changed the game. Then round two, they just dominated. Yeah, like that game was never competitive. Not for a single second was that game competitive. And when we look at how they match it with UConn, it's not the worst matchup in the world for San Diego State. Like, I wouldn't expect them to win, but like they have the guards to switch. They have like the big wings that you kind of need when you can switch that 1 through 4. And Ledee's speed could be a problem in that game. So from that perspective, yeah, I could see it.
Shout out. I don't know if this thing is like glitching, because when I turned my head, this thing was at like 150 viewers. Now it's up to like 640. I don't know if this is glitching, but shout out.
You want to look in the chat and see why? Shout out to Seth Davis for retweeting the show.
Yeah. He retweeted our show. I just
Huge
saw on Twitter.
shout out.
Shout out to him, man.
Appreciate you, Seth Davis. Come on. I will send you the link. Appreciate you. Let's talk about this region though. With the Sweet 16 is set. We've got some incredible matchups. Let's start at the top in the 1-5 game. This game, is it 3/28 Thursday? Is that what that is? Or is that Friday?
Thursday is my birthday. It is 3/28.
Okay, so this game,
That's how I remember it.
I lost that Seth Davis thing threw me off. That's really cool. So this game is on Thursday. Rematch of the national championship from last year. Trev, you were in attendance for UConn, the 1 seed, San Diego State, the 5. As much as I want to say San Diego State's toughness and grittiness, and they've got a star in Jaden Ledee, is there anything San Diego State can do besides just hope UConn misses a bunch of shots and that San Diego State gets red hot to keep this close? Because I feel like, man, UConn's such a buzzsaw right now.
I'm fighting for something to tell you, to be honest with you. I just sat here and stared at the screen for like 15 seconds. It was like, and I was like, if there's anybody on this panel that's going to defend San Diego State, it's going to be me. And I sat here and I looked at everything, and thank you to Peyton for putting this on the screen. The 31% from 3 is going to absolutely annihilate them. Like if UConn, if Caravan or Spencer or anybody has a good 3-point shooting game, San Diego State's probably screwed. And, this is not gambling advice here, but, I feel really good about some of the UConn overs here.
Do you know what's the scary thing, Peyton and DeRosa, about UConn right now? Not only are they the reigning champs, not only have they been so dominant through the regular season, but Coach Hurley, if you watch his halftime interviews, it's like they're up 30 at halftime, and he's pissed.
He's still pissed.
He's mad that they missed a box out. He's mad they didn't get on the loose or on the ground for a ball. He's just pissed. They're up 30. They're rolling. So imagine what he'll feel like if San Diego State even has this remotely close at halftime.
But to that point, it just shows the culture he's built down there at UConn. The fact that they're up 30 and he's still pissed off. Kevin Sampson's the same way for Houston. He was pissed off in their first round game as well when they were up like 40 points or whatever it was. And he was so pissed that they missed the box out, not actually playing well. But yeah, I just think it shows the winning culture that he has down there. He's a fiery coach. He's going to get them playing well. This game is very intriguing. San Diego State's defense is obviously really good, but the fact, like Trev mentioned, they're shooting 31% from 3, which I will say that was probably the most irrelevant stat in this tournament because I've seen teams who shooting 30% from 3 coming out and looking like they're a bunch of Stephen Curry's out there shooting 45% from 3. So we'll see. They're definitely have to hit some shots. They have to clean up a glass. I think UConn wins this game, but the question is, does San Diego State keep it close? If they can keep it close with under 4, I do think they'll have a chance to win, but UConn's the best team in the country, and they have been all season long. UConn wins.
The rest of go with your point, and we've got a special guest joining us here for a little bit, so then I'll bring him on.
Yeah, just real quick, I think defensively San Diego State matches up well enough with UConn because I think you really have to switch all the off-ball action they run. I think San Diego State can do that to an extent, so I think the best outcome for San Diego State, obviously, UConn's going to have to miss a lot of shots because San Diego State's not like great offensively. But they're just going to have to switch all those actions, kind of disrupt UConn. And one matchup that I don't think UConn's really faced in the Big East is teams with some skill, but really a lot of athleticism. Because like if we look at the two best teams in the Big East who aren't UConn, it's Creighton and Marquette. Now that those teams are like overwhelmingly athletic, overwhelmingly physical, I think those are the kind of teams that will give UConn problems. I think San Diego State can give UConn problems from that perspective, and it's a national title rematch. I mean, we'd be remiss to not mention that. But yeah, I'm not picking against UConn in the spot, but I think it'll be closer than some people think.
Yeah, man, I just worry about San Diego State producing enough points. They're not the greatest shooting team. Yeah. I think physicality, they're going to have to find ways to get UConn in foul trouble, live at the free throw line, if we're being honest, and then just have a special performance from Jaden Ledee. Bringing on our special guest that joins us. He was on the show, what was it, Max? About a month and a half ago, we were previewing Kentucky, Tennessee, and all these different games from Southeastern 14 over at Twitter and on the YouTube. We bring in our good friend Max Barr. Max, we're over here talking about the East region. We just begin to break down and preview the Sweet 16. I would be remiss, my friend, since you talk a lot and cover the Southeastern Conference. What a missed opportunity from Auburn. What are you hearing from the Auburn folks? I'm sure it's obviously disappointment. They've got to feel like they should be against UConn this upcoming Thursday, right?
Oh, it's just killing me. And thanks for having me on again. Loved the first time I was on. It was a great time. I mean, talk about a melt. Talk about a melt down the stretch there. I picked Auburn to win it all. Okay, so yeah, I'm just shaking in my boots down the stretch there that game, and I mean, if there was like a list of like a million things that had to happen for Yale to win that game, like all a million happened and then a few more. This is the one thing I don't know because we cover the SEC. How many career highs do we have to get dropped on us? Golke goes ridiculous, drops a career high. The Pulakidis drops a career high. And then just last night, Emmanuel Sharp decides to have the best game of his life.
Well, you know what? You know the SEC's tag, right? Their slogan.
It just means more.
It just means more, my friend. What we have
wrecked.
you here, obviously you're kind of in that southeastern region, so we'll kind of stay on that topic a little bit. Wasn't the greatest tournament for the SEC, who we arguably all thought was at least the second best conference of college basketball this season, only behind the Big 12. What went wrong? Like when you look at it as a whole, obviously the conference still has Alabama and Tennessee remaining, but Kentucky, South Carolina out in the first round. Texas A&M plays an incredible game against Houston last night, but they're out. When you look at the conference, is it just one of those deals where it's tough to win? I mean, when you look at it, what do you think went wrong for the SEC in the tournament?
Defense. The conference doesn't know how to play it besides Tennessee. I mean, you had Alabama, who's still chugging along, but defense outside the top 100. Kentucky outside the top 100. Florida outside the top 90. I mean, it made for a very entertaining regular season. I mean, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, all the rotation of those games were so entertaining all year. But when it came down to a game of one, win or go home, we have to get 3 stops in a row. The SEC just didn't have many teams doing that.
Well, Peyton, Florida, prime example. We've loved their offense all year. And they played one of the more entertaining games against Colorado that ended, 102-100, but they couldn't get stops. Do you guys have anything for Max SEC related as far as the tournament failures go, really?
Yeah, we're obviously got you on for the next few minutes here. Unfortunately, the Midwest has an SEC team coming up here in a little while. Obviously, Alabama as well. I guess your thoughts on Tennessee Creighton. I know that's in a few, probably 30, 45 minutes from now for us here. But thoughts on Tennessee Creighton? How big of a chance do you think Tennessee has to pull it off?
Yeah, so there's been a trend with Tennessee this year, and they've lost to the same team. Well, besides those non-conference, that like Thanksgiving run of where it was like the top 5 teams in a row, in the SEC play, they lost to the same team every time. It was that like slow, gross, not going to shoot that well. We're going to muck it up and just get guys in foul trouble and make a gross game out of it. That was the team they lost to every time. It was South Carolina, Mississippi State, Texas A&M. They did when they played Alabama, when they played Florida, when they played Kentucky, they looked like world beaters. And so what I'm a little bit nervous about for Tennessee here is Creighton is not going to run up and down and fly. They're going to slow it down and get their half court, just on almost unstoppable offense. That's not what Tennessee wants to do at all. People have this kind of general consensus that Tennessee is a very slow, defense-ridden team. But this year, when they've played that team, that's when they've lost. And when they've played that team that gets up and down and runs, that's when they've had these connect 40 bombs and whatnot. So I do think there's a little wrinkle with the Kalkbrenner drop coverage in Tennessee's kind of mid-range game with connect, and JJJ's got a little bit of a mid-range game, Adu a little bit, but I'm worried about the tempo that Creighton plays. It's just not been the type of game that Tennessee likes to play this year.
It's good.
Yeah. Another question for me. I mean, I'm going to ask about the other game just because it's the SEC. When we look at the Alabama UNC game, it's the team with who plays the fastest pace left in the tournament versus the team that plays the 3rd fastest pace left in the tournament, North Carolina. So just what are some of your expectations in that game? And do you think the fact that UNC also likes to play fast, do you think that plays towards Alabama's advantage? Or would it be more the fact that UNC is going to be comfortable at that pace and they will actually like drive the ball and take advantage of Alabama's lackluster defense?
Yeah, so it's a hard one to pin because Alabama didn't have their guys, I don't know, maybe all of February with Wrightsell being out and whatnot. I mean, you just look at Mo Diabate last game. basically won him the game in the second
Killed
half
him against
besides
Grand
Sears.
Canyon, yeah.
And you're like, where'd this guy come from? So they're a hard team to pin. But the thing that Alabama does not like is teams that drive on them and get them into fouls. Because if you look at their Ken Palm, I don't have it pulled up on me right now, but that defensive foul rate's red. They do not. That's why Grand Canyon was getting to the line so much. I mean, Grand Canyon wasn't making their free throws, but I was just at the Charlotte game and I watched Michigan State basically eliminate the paint of Mississippi State. I mean, they couldn't even get an entry pass in. And then you watch them kind of jump on UNC. And I'm like, oh my gosh, UNC might go down here. And then UNC just forces it in there, just shoves it into Baycott. Davis bullies his way in. Ingram bullies his way in. And I think that's going to be something that Alabama struggles with is UNC's not going to stop forcing it inside. And once Waggy will pick up some fouls, Pringle will pick up some fouls, but once Nelson starts getting in those 3-4 foul area, Alabama's rim protection just falls off a cliff. So it'll be interesting, but it's going to be hard to stop Baycott.
Something I'm battling really quick. Something I'm battling with that I think Max could provide some light on for maybe others that are thinking the same thing. How much variance or how much stock are you putting in the variance of Alabama's offense going from scoring 100 plus against Charleston, whose defense wasn't incredible, let's be real, but to Grand Canyon's to then obviously scoring 40 points less against Grand Canyon? How much stock are you putting in that variance, or is there something there that just may speak to something a potential upset, I would call it, if Alabama beats North Carolina?
I think the difference in that is a great question because we talked about this. The difference in that is Charleston kind of played into Alabama's hands, and Charleston was trying to beat Alabama doing Alabama things, and
doesn't work out.
You can't do that. And Grand Canyon was like, "Hey, look, we're gonna do our thing," and win. Well, they had a shot. So I think that was kind of like. We were kind of calling Charleston a mini Alabama going into that game, kind of played a similar way. And I think it was just kind of that contrast in styles was what kind of slowed Alabama up and getting into the fouls.
So we'll end with this, Max. And of course, my friend, we're always happy to have you on. Alabama, North Carolina. We talked a lot about Alabama's defense, although during this tournament run, it's been a little better through 2 games, but North Carolina is a whole nother animal to try to keep out of the paint, keep Davis from shooting. If you think you got him stopped, Cormac Ryan from 3, it's a whole different beast. Do you think Nate Oates at some point probably doesn't start with it, but at some point, if the game's close and he feels like they're giving up too much middle penetration, throws in a sneaky zone for a couple possessions to try to at least keep North Carolina off kilter? Because I've got a sneaky suspicion he will. I think you'll see a little bit of zone from Nate Oates just to try to keep Carolina honest and help protect the paint.
I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put him past him at all, especially because I don't think it's any question who's got the more consistent defense in this matchup. So anything to kind of gain an edge and even that out a little bit. I could see it, but I think the main thing is Mo Diabate and his physicality that they can bring in now. They didn't really have that they don't have that when Jaron Stevenson's on the floor. He kind of stretches them out a little bit more, trying to do more stuff like Noah Clowney was doing last year. But when Mo D gets in there, man, that guy's just a tank. So I think we'll see more minutes from him to kind of help, down low a little bit.
The Sam Walters game is incoming against North Carolina. Real quick, who goes further? Alabama, Tennessee, you got to put money on it. Who's more likely to make the Final Four from the regions we know in the Sweet 16 now?
Oh, man, that's a brutal one. So it's a two-sided answer I'm going to give you here. When you look at the path, it's going to be, I would say Alabama has the weaker one, and probably, if they're getting, who are they getting, Arizona or Clemson? Say they get Clemson, they might get UNC Clemson. It's not bad. Tennessee's got Creighton and potentially Purdue, but this might bite me in the butt here, but Tennessee played Purdue in the beginning of the year with Ziegler making his way back off an ACL. Toby Awaka was dealing with an ankle injury. Even Connect wasn't 100% yet. Give me Tennessee.
I like it. We all picked
Let's go,
Tennessee.
Trevor. Come on.
Last week on the tournament special, I think all of us to a man picked Tennessee to come out of that region against Purdue in some shape or form. So I hope that's the matchup we get. No offense to Creighton or any of the others, but that's a fun one with all the little interesting storylines within the game there. Max, my friend, it's been a pleasure having you back on. Sucks SEC kind of crapped the bed in this tournament outside the final two there, but we appreciate you, my friend. I can't wait to have you back on in future episodes. And tell the people real quick, because we've got 1,900 people watching. Shout out again, Seth Davis. Tell the people where to find you and your work over at Southeastern 14.
Yep, just Southeastern 14 on all socials. But also, I mean, we got Texas and Oklahoma coming in soon, so a little name change coming. But hey, the SEC listen, it's been a tough tournament, but we still got a heartbeat. All right, we're still going. Okay, I'm still carrying out hope. Let's go. Thanks for having me on, boys.
There you go.
Take care, man.
Max Barr from Southeastern 14,
Nice.
A good friend of the show and program. He's a good dude. Really good insight on the Southeastern Conference teams. You guys know me. My team is in the Southeastern Conference. We're going to talk about that failure here coming up. But I love that conference. Max is a great representative. He was at the SEC tournament. He followed along with some of the teams with the NCAA first rounds. Max is a good dude, and I can't wait to have him back on the show with us. So we predicted we all four picked UConn to kind of get through San Diego State. The bottom part of this regional semifinal, if I could speak, 3-seed Illinois, 2-seed Iowa State, chalky chalk down there in the south part of the East region. This one is the explosive offense versus Illinois versus the airtight defense of Iowa State. I always say great offense trumps great defense any day of the week, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Peyton, we'll go down to you first. Illinois, Iowa State.
Well, you've said it perfectly. Number one offense against the number one defense. I am very curious. This is probably the most intriguing Sweet 16 matchup for me because I am so curious how TJ Otterberger is going to scheme up to try to defend Terrence Shannon Jr. I feel like he's still probably going to go for 20 plus just because he's probably top 3, top 5, 100% best players in the country right now. And he's playing like it. He's red hot, and he can go off at any moment. So he's probably going to get 20. The key for Iowa State is really shutting out Domask and all the other guys that they got. Coleman Hawkins. It all depends. If it's good Coleman Hawkins, then I think Illinois probably wins this. But if it's bad Coleman Hawkins, I think Iowa State wins this. And you've always said great offense trumps great defense. I've always said great defense wins national championships, and that's what Iowa State has. And the fact that they beat Houston in the Big 12 championship game, the way that in the fashion that they did, I've never seen a Houston team under Kelvin Sampson get bullied like that. They took what Kevin Sampson has made so great at Houston and did it right back to Houston, gave them a taste of their own medicine in the Big 12 title game. I am very high on this Iowa State squad, have been all season long pretty much. Really like their guards. Forza Milan, by the way, former Milan Mamakilovic. I feel like he's going to hit some big shots in this one. I got Iowa State winning this one, but man, it's going to be entertaining to watch.
I don't have a ton to add. I'll just be quick because I don't have a ton to add because at the end of the day, like this. I mean, this is just, I'm not going to call this a coin flip. I'd love to look up the line if DeRosa can pull that up as fast as humanly possible I'm sure he'll have some point about gambling.
It's 1 point favorite Iowa State on KenPom.
There. So then look, I'm not adding anything to this. I think it's amazing that it's the number one defense against number one offense. My only point that I would say against Illinois that really scares me, I don't know if we're actually picking these right this second. I have something later on for this region, but Illinois' defense being almost dead last in steal percentage really does scare me. If they can't generate enough turnovers, enough deflections, then I think Iowa State plays it right into their hands, and I think they can win the game. The problem is I don't know if their offense can keep up. I'm not shocked it's a 1 point advantage for either team, so I don't even know if I want to pick this game or not. Russell?
The book I'm looking at, it's an offshore book because my VPN is in Illinois, and you cannot bet on in-state teams in Illinois, has Iowa State as 2 point favorites. I actually go the other way. I lean Illinois in this game. I just think Illinois is more athletic. I think that causes problems in this one. I'm not it's not a pick I'm like running to the book to make. I'm not confident in it whatsoever. But I just think Illinois, I think TJ Shannon's a real matchup problem. I think the fact that Illinois is bigger, I think they're just kind of okay in a defense like this. I think they're kind of built for tournament success, at least in this spot. I'm not 100% confident in it because Iowa State's physical defense could really make this game interesting. But I'm going to lean Illinois in this spot. I am not particularly confident in it. I just kind of think I just think this is a good matchup for Illinois. I think Illinois has the pieces to exploit Iowa State's defense, and I think they can beat them in transition too, which I think would change this game entirely.
Here's where I agree with that, and a couple things to keep in mind. We talked about the number one offense against the number one defense. Iowa State's 206 in Ken Pom and tempo. Illinois 70th. That means Illinois obviously wants to get this thing up and down, fast-paced game. Iowa State's going to try to grind them out, which they should. You got to try to slow this Illinois offense down in some way, shape, or form. Here's the thing I love about Illinois that we've seen through the Big Ten tournament, and we've seen through, the Morehead State game, they faced some adversity, right? They blew out Duquesne. But the thing I love about Illinois that they've shown in the last 3-4 weeks, a month, whatever, as long as they don't go down too big, like if they go down like 15-20 to Iowa State will just pound them into the ground. But if they're only down like 7, 8, 9, 10 points even, they've shown spurt ability that they can make that deficit up in a hurry. And for a guy like TJ Shannon, all he needs to see is the ball go to the bucket one time. All he needs to see is that ball to go through the hoop one time, and he's liable to go on like a 25-point run. I think Marcus Domas could present a lot of problems because Iowa State, as great as their defense is, they like to stay compact. Domas, we know he has the ability to step out and hit the threes, but if he gets the right matchups on him, like if he gets, let's say, a Taman Lipsy on him and like a switch on the pick and roll, he's going straight to the block and going to work. I like Illinois' offense. There's something about that. I love the flow in which they're playing. And again, Coleman Hawkins is going to have to be good in this game. He's going to have probably like a 15-point, 10 rebound, 6 assists, kind of really good Coleman Hawkins performance. But I think Illinois, I love the fact that they've shown that they can come back against deficits. It doesn't bother them like it used to maybe. I think Illinois is going to get the pace to an uncomfortable position for Iowa State. I like Illinois in this game.
So I got a caveat to a counterpoint to what you just said about the tempo. It's a lot easier. We've seen this multiple times in this tournament already. It's a lot easier to slow a team down than to speed a team up. When you're playing against Iowa State, you're not going to be able to control the tempo in this game. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Iowa State's done a great job controlling tempo pretty much all season long. When you play them, it's going to be a grinded out game, and that's what it's going to be. And if Illinois can't hit shots consistently, if Coleman Hawkins isn't hitting shots, if I know Taylor St. Jr. is going to do his thing, but if Domas isn't hitting shots, Iowa State's actually shooting the blue ball just slightly better than Illinois. And Iowa State, they're going to make their moments count on offense. I believe that. And defensively, like if Illinois can't convert majority of their shots offensively, they're going to have a tough time winning this game. And God forbid if they get down like 8 points, something like that, a couple possessions, it's going to be a stranglehold. It's going to be a real fight for them to come back and win that game. I got Iowa State.
Here's the other thing, though, to keep in mind to flip that as well. If Iowa State, let's say they come out maybe a little tense, tight, miss some shots, especially long rebounds that let Illinois athletes to get it on the run and get in transition. If they find themselves down early, 10, 12 points to Illinois, I don't know if they can produce enough offense to play step for step with Illinois unless they turn them over. That's always the caveat, unless they turn them over. But I think either one, man, whoever can kind of get that first blow, we always talk about it, first four, last four, first four, last four. There's going to be that 16-minute period there in the ball game of the 40 that's going to determine who wins this game. First four to start, last four before halftime, first four outside of halftime, last four to end the game. Whoever wins the majority of those is probably going to win this ball game because I think the middle part right there is going to be played evenly. What a fun matchup, though. What an absolute barn burner that is, Illinois and Iowa State 3 versus 2. We're going to save the Elite Eight matchup for later on. Let's move over to the South region, kind of the same thing, overarching thing. I know everybody wants to talk about it. The biggest upset of the tournament, 14 seed Oakland. Jack Golke goes absolutely nutty, hits 10 threes, knocks Kentucky out. I've got a video up on our YouTube channel explaining, breaking this down. Peyton and I went 57 minutes explaining. We didn't go too much into the game, but we went into how I was feeling, Calipari's future, which is a big topic of discussion. But let's talk about the game a little bit, since that is the big one everybody wants to talk about in this region outside of what happened last night. I'll let you guys take over. What did you see in this game? I know Kentucky didn't defend the way maybe North Carolina State did Oakland, but there was a lot of shots. If you go back and watch the film where there was a hand in Golke's face and he just made it. He just made it. So talk to me about what you guys seen in that game for Oakland to pull up such a massive upset.
Golke is a no closeout guy. He is someone you cannot be closing out to when he is rising up. Kentucky was closing out. They were a step late. And when a guy is a good shooter like that, especially when he's on fire, you can't be closing out on him. And they would run him off screens. He did a very good job creating space off screens, I thought, in that game. And I thought Oakland ran some good actions for him. But also, and this guy hasn't gotten talked about nearly enough, Trey Townsend was the best player on Oakland all season long. Yep. He was, in my mind, the best player on the floor in the NC State game, even though they did end up losing that game. Townsend was very good in this game. It was a matchup inside that he needed to hold his own on. And that's what he did. He held his own. He was able to create plays for others, and he made some tough shots. He made some tough buckets that made sure that you couldn't put all the attention on Golke. You had to commit some guys to Townsend. Townsend is a high major player. If he ends up transferring, he should be a guy that a lot of high majors look at. That dude is really skilled. He's 6'8". He's good everywhere. He's a good ball mover. He's good off the bounce. He's good inside. He can step outside and hit a couple jump shots. So I think Townsend kind of provided enough like stability for Golke to end up going off. And then you got some good production out of Deku Cole and Rocket Watts. But I don't think Townsend got enough credit. I thought he was even though Golke deserved all the shine. The man made 10 threes. But Trey Townsend deserved a lot of credit for how he played in that game. It can be a big task going up against 5-star Aaron Bradshaw or guy who everyone thought was going to be the number one pick ever. Yeah.
He should have played more. He came in.
His AAU, hold on a second. Sorry to cut you off. Did you see what his AAU coach posted on, I think it was his IG story afterwards?
I did not.
He circled Bradshaw's 4 minutes and said, no wonder this guy ain't play. Thank God he gone next year.
Oh, I did not see that. That's interesting. But you know what? I thought of all the bigs, he played the best. And it's not saying a whole lot, but he played the best in his little bit of time. Trevor, we knew Jack Golke had one weapon and one weapon only to beat Kentucky or to beat anybody. He's going to let it fly from deep. And somehow Kentucky still allowed him to get shots off, whether they were contested or they fell for shot fakes, allowed this dude wide open who's buried 6-7 threes at that point on him. I mean, when you looked at this game as a whole, give all the credit in the world to Oakland. Trey Townsend, we talked about him. DQ Cole steps up, hits a clutch 3 in the corner to ice the game pretty much. But on the Kentucky end of things, what did you see outside of the defense? Because to me, and I text you guys, 4 minutes into the game, you could tell they were nervous and they were scared shitless. Did you see the same thing from the young Kentucky players? Because I could tell they looked nervous. Just watch how they shot the ball.
Look, I'll kind of combine the two things I was going to say together. Like, I think Greg Campy just had an unbelievable poise about him. I mean, obviously, when you're a coach for 40 years, regardless if it's with one program, like he's been coaching as long as my parents have been alive, for crying out loud, right? Like it just coaching for 7 years before being a head coach, 40 years at Oakland. I think the coaching was ultimately the biggest difference. I know some of the I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I have a bunch of notes about this game. It happened, a week and a half ago now or whatever, right? And it is what it is. Like, I'm not going to sit here and feel like I don't have notes. So I'll just say the coaching advantage is what it came down to. And there's a 57-minute video people can listen to about that. So I have to give I was going to, before your question, just give a huge shout out to Greg Campy, because he's just an incredibly poised coach. And obviously those many years of experience to win the first tournament game like that, it speaks to how incredibly prepared those guys were.
Shout out Greg Campy. Peyton, real quick, last thoughts on this game. Massive upset, the biggest of the tournament.
I mean, we talked about it on our video. Cats came out. They were 100% nervous. You just don't win with freshmen anymore. Maybe once these COVID years and all these extra years go away, maybe it'll go back to more freshman-dominant type of teams. But you got to get old and stay old, and Kentucky just wasn't old this year. They were backed by pretty much 4 or 5 freshmen along with Antonio Reeves. The Cats came out nervous. Their game planning was off. There was one possession in the game where I think Golke or whoever was shooting free throws, they got an and one. I think it was in the second half actually, and he misses the shot, and then Trey Mitchell grabs the ball and throws it out of the bounds, thinking he has another shot. I mean, that's just, I don't know what the hell you're thinking on that. I don't understand that, but the game planning was wrong. The preparation was not there. Jack Golke coming into this game, he's shot 141 field goals, 137 of them for threes. That's all he has. And yet you let him tear you up. Now, again, when a guy's that hot, it's really hard to defend them. But Kentucky's intangibles, what they were doing on defense was so mixed up. They were hedged when they should have just stayed on him. Reed Sheppard was like 3 steps behind. Defensively, the game planning was just not there, and it led to an upset, one of the biggest in the tournament by far.
So looking at the South region as a whole, outside of the Kentucky upset, of course, that did set up the bracket for the bottom part of the South region. Trev, you got to feel good, man. You're a Wolfpack not only going 5 games in 5 days to win the ACC title, to get into March Madness as an 11 seed. They have a nice win by 13 points over a solid Texas Tech team. Then they do get the benefit of playing Oakland that really challenged them. But at the end of the day, man, DJ Burns is on a heater right now. Your guards are playing well, and you find yourself in the Sweet 16. That's got to feel incredible right now.
I mean, yeah, look, I'm still trying to come up with how I feel because, I mean, I wish I took a picture of it. My heart rate was like in the 120s in the final 4 minutes of both those games. Like, that's probably not healthy if we're just being real here. None of us are doctors, for crying out loud. But
I play one on TV.
At the end of the day, the Texas Tech win arguably was more like, I know that Oakland was the hot story, and like even the announcers were just like, you get into those games and it's weird being on the favorite end of that, and like you just hear it's like they really want that story to happen and they want Oakland to make the Sweet 16. And that's what it sounded like at the eventual point. My point being is it feels really good that to know how impressive the Texas Tech victory was, because I know we think of Grant McCaslin, who's an incredible defensive wizard. Their offense is rated 40 points better on KenPom than their defense, and despite how good of a defensive team Texas Tech is, I was really impressed with how poised the team was against Texas Tech, and I think that speaks well for the matchup against Marquette that I'm sure we'll preview very shortly. Yeah, of course I feel great. I didn't think Oakland was going to be the team we were facing there. I was really wondering if it was going to be a round of 32 boxing match against Kentucky. I really was wanting that. I was hoping it.
Friend.
But
I wish
mean,
it was.
Because losing to Kentucky or losing to any team that wasn't Oakland would have felt better than losing to Oakland in the round of 32. Like, I don't know how else to word that. DJ Burns is a legend. We're not doing shout outs. It's not on the agenda, but shout out to DJ Burns for just being a walking refrigerator with ballerina feet.
Well, DeRosa, you're the resident Big East guy here at the network. Marquette, a lot of pressure on Shaka Smart. Ever since he went to the Final Four as VCU, he has not really had good tournament success. Didn't have it at Texas, even though he had some quality teams. And even last year, they win the Big East, sweep the Big East, come in as a 2 seed. They get knocked out in the second round. They're back in the Sweet 16 after taking down a game Western Kentucky team that I tried to warn people about. I think they just ran out of legs, and Marquette was obviously the better team, more equipped there. And then they had to fight off a really tough Colorado team, but they're back in the Sweet 16. Talk to me about what you're feeling from the Marquette fans. Shaka, obviously very emotional after beating Colorado to get back to the Sweet 16. Marquette looks good, man. I think they're finally over that hump of getting past the first weekend. Now we may see like a really dangerous Marquette team now.
Yeah, I think Marquette really, really needed to get to the Sweet 16 this year, especially after you sit Kolek in the Big East tournament, basically to rest him for these games. If you end up losing that game to Colorado after you sat Kolek just solely for this run, that would have just hurt even more. Because then you could continue the Shaka wasn't good in March jokes, which, look, they had legs, all things considered. When we step back and look at it, the Texas teams weren't really the way he wants to coach. Like Texas was like, no, you have to get 5 stars in, and Shaka's like, no, that's like, these guys don't really fit how I play. He's like, it doesn't matter. So that was an odd fit. That's why he's done better at Marquette, in my opinion. Just looking at the matchup going forward, obviously Marquette fans are ecstatic that they're this far, that they've gotten to this point, and all things considered, yeah, Trev, walk away. I think they have a really good matchup in this spot. I think the way Marquette plays is kind of tailor-made to not just beat the piss out of NC State.
Notice he got whisper in there? Chat, the 2,300 people, almost 2,400 people. He said that real quiet once.
Say with the chat.
So I didn't need to say what I had until then, but
he got real quiet there.
Yeah, I did.
Trev,
I don't want to hurt my friend. I'm okay hurting you too.
Yeah, what did I miss? Sorry, I was grabbing my Sweet 16 ACC back-to-back women ACC championship hat. The Wolfpack.
All right, never mind. Now I'm okay being a dick. Fuck this. Marquette is going to beat the fucking piss out of NC State. This is a terrible matchup. This is a bad matchup.
Hold on. We'll get that in a second.
I'm out.
Better.
Technical.
Oso Ighodaro is going to eat DJ Burns' lunch. The fact that DJ Burns is going to have to guard them and dribble handoff.
Hold on. Jump in the lead here, asshole. Quit it.
I mean, to be fair, we're an hour in and we're like halfway through recapping or 2 regions.
I was going to make a quick point that I was going to shut up for the next 4 minutes, but okay, go ahead. Your mic is hot, guys. Go ahead.
The game of the tournament. I just want to touch on it real quick. 90 seconds. Last night, one of the final games of the first week in the tournament. 1 seed Houston playing 8 seed Texas A&M. Long story short, Emmanuel Sharp, insane.
Are we not in the South still? Did we move on from the South? Am I blind?
This is still the South.
No, we're still in the South. Oh, I said
oh
8
my
seed.
God.
I meant 9 seed Texas
Oh,
A&M.
okay. I was sorry.
Yeah, no,
that's on me.
Emmanuel Sharp drops 30 points, goes absolutely insane from 3. Houston is up basically 13 points with 90 seconds to go. Game seems over. Buzz Williams decides to go full court press. Houston allows Texas A&M, however you want to look at that. A&M takes it, however you want to look at it. Bottom line, it comes down to a 3-point game with, 1.2, 1.3 seconds. They do a baseline out of bounds play. It gets to Anderson Garcia, of all people, at the top of the key. Buries a 3, goes to overtime. Houston fouls out their top 4 guys eventually, and then still wins this game in overtime, 195. Incredible resolve from Houston to show why they are a legitimate national championship contender. But Texas A&M, you got to give your hat and tip it to them. Buzz Williams, incredible coach. Wade Taylor, as great as he is, and those big shots he hit there during the comeback, he kind of shot him out of the game too. So in 90 seconds, real quick, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Because I think that's the game of the tournament by far so far.
Either that or Colorado, Florida for me. I had a buddy of mine actually come up from Florida who was able to stay at my place in this game. The last time I went to a tournament game, my heart got broken by Colorado. So I have a friend come up here. His heart gets broken by Colorado. So it's just kind of on brand. But just quickly on this game, I thought it was an excellent played game. I thought Wade Taylor got more shit than he should have. Truly, he got them back in the game. The game, we are not in overtime without Wade Taylor. I thought he got more shit than he should have. That is my quick thought.
I mean, 5 for 20. I get your point. 5 for 24 or 5 for God knows what it was is the
He's
only.
the best player on the team.
No, I know. I'm not defending. I'm not. I'm just making the obvious counterpoint in the comments.
Yeah.
So, really quick, I really more about this game, or less about this game, more about, I guess, the result of this game and how it impacted what happened. But the tired thing is going to be that, well, this Houston team's beatable now. And we see the result and da-da-da-da. We see this, we see that. If anything, the Wired thing, I tweeted it last night, tired Wired. The Wired thing is that this actually showed the resiliency of a Houston team who was beaten and battered, who obviously dealt with injuries, put in a guy that had only shot 4 free throws all year. I think DeRosa, you had tweeted that. He's like, he had 4 free throws all year. I think that was you. If not, whoever it was.
To hit that second one.
But to hit to hit either of them, right? Like, and the fact that they went that deep into the bench because they had to. Other guys other than Cryer and Shed, which was a big criticism all year. Sharp stepped up, like you said in the open there. I think this speaks to the resiliency of this Houston team, and I think that they, we'll preview the Duke game here shortly, but I think they have some really good firepower, and they obviously learned from it. I think someone made the comment earlier about what Sampson said about Texas A&M. I think it might have been Max or somebody about Texas A&M and the offensive boards in round 1 and how pissed off Sampson was, and that was what gave Texas A&M the comeback, was the offensive boards and was the continuous opportunity that Houston let up. And I think that obviously that wasn't a good thing, but they did overcome that, and I'm going to say that that's something I took away from this game.
Peyton A&M might have been the only team in the country, or at least one of obviously UConn, but one of the only teams in the country, especially left in the tournament time, that could go toe-to-toe with Houston as far as toughness goes. Buzz Williams, incredible coach. The culture he's built down there, they showed up for a fist fight, and it turned out to be a hell of a game.
Yeah, this is twice now they had a chance to beat them. They had a chance to beat them early in the season, and Houston ended up pulling that one out. I think it was a low-scoring game, if I remember correctly, and this one was not a low-scoring game. Houston scored 100 points. I'll give them shit on the offense all the time. I do think offensively they do got issues, but in this game they scored 100 points and they did what they needed to do to win without their top 4 best players being fouled out, and they still won this game. Love me some Kelvin Sampson. I think they have a legit chance to win a national title. Didn't get to watch too much of this game because I had some stuff to do last night, and I ended up missing the majority of this game, which I'm really pissed off of because I wanted to watch this game so badly because I thought it was going to be entertaining. But I do agree with DeRosa. To me, the game of the tournament was Colorado, Florida. It's definitely one of the arguments. Another game that was in the hundreds for that ended up having a game winner. But real quick, just in this region, you mentioned Texas A&M. Shout out to Tominaga from Nebraska. Hell of a career. I know people are giving him shit on Twitter, saying blah, 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 all this other stuff, but it's so dumb. Like, he was one of the funnest players to watch in the country, and he willed this Nebraska team. Nebraska probably had no business being in this tournament, and he willed them into this NCAA tournament. So shout out to him. Great career, bro.
15 seconds on Tominaga. I will never forget him as long as I live. The longest overtime game I've ever experienced was 4 overtimes, Nebraska-NC State at the PNC Arena, and he was one of the biggest performers in that game 2 years ago. I'll never forget it.
When did it become cool to start making fun of kids or players for being emotional that their career's over? I don't get these people to get on Twitter and act weirdos.
I will derail this podcast if we get into this, by the way. So I'm going to mute my mic.
I'm with you guys.
Sweet 16, though, we talked about it. Now let's get into it real quick. 1 seed Houston, it's 4 seed Duke, who has looked phenomenal. You talk about biggest winners in a region. To me, they are the biggest winner of this region because of how good they look. This looks like the team that everybody thought before the start of the season could cut the nets down. Jared McCain going nutty against a good James Madison team, blowing them out 93-55. Duke's offense, and I still have questions and concerns about how tough they are. They're going to be answered on Friday against a very tough Houston team. Peyton, I'll let you start on this. Houston's toughness, their elite guard play, incredible head coach against it seems like a resurgent Duke team that's got all the talent in the world. Jared McCain's lighting the nets up. I think this should be a fun one on CBS at 9:39 on Friday night.
Your definition of fun is different from mine because I'm sorry, Michael Davis. I'll give you some credit. I didn't think Duke was going to make it to the Sweet 16. I thought they'd get beaten the first weekend. So I'm a man of my word. I apologize for that. But my sentiment, speaking of, I'm using this live chat. That's funny. But my sentiment about Duke being soft is still the truth. I'm not going to shy away from that at all. And they're facing the toughest team in the country in Houston. If I can steal a phrase from my good friend Michael DeRosa, Duke is getting the piss beat out of them in this game. Houston is going to dominate in this game. Houston just came off scoring 100 points against a team who may be just as tough as they are. Duke's not even close to being tough as Texas A&M is. Not even remotely close. They probably have more talent on the roster than Houston does, but talent doesn't always get to you winning a lot of these games. It can get you far, but Houston's toughness and the intensity on defense and the attention to detail, they're deep. Yeah, they're a little battered, but LJ Cryer and Jamal Shead, we need to start giving him some credit. He might be the second best point guard in the country behind Tyler Kolek. He's played amazing this year, and I think Houston beats the living shit out of Duke. I'm sorry, Michael Davis and all the Duke guys out there. I don't think this game's going to be close. I think Houston sets the tone early, and Duke can never get into the game.
DeRosa,
I'm not sorry at all, by the way. Let me just make that abundantly clear.
DeRosa,
nice.
Here's the thing, though. We've said all year with Duke that if they could get their guards clicking at the right time, when their guards play elite, they are so damn good, and we're seeing that through this tournament run. I mean, Jeremy Roach was pitching in 15. McCain, as I mentioned, with 30. Proctor 18, to the point where Filipowski can give you a 14-5 type of night, and they still win going away. I know Houston is a different animal with that elite defense, the toughness and everything, but I love this guard, the three-headed monster of the Roach, McCain, and Proctor. If they play this well, I think they can put some numbers on the board and keep it close and make it very interesting for Houston down in Dallas.
I'm not as extreme in this take as Peyton is, but I think I agree with just about every single word he said. Houston's the more physical team, grown men against freshmen. I think it really boils down to that. I think Houston's going to bully him inside. I think you mentioned the guard play. I think the con with that would be I think you can bully these Duke guards, and I think Houston's going to bully these Duke guards. Houston's guards are bigger. Houston's guards are stronger. Houston's guards are older. I think that matters in this spot. Sure, Duke guards are more talented. I would agree with that point. That said, if you're asking me to pick one guard in this game and say he needs to get you a bucket to win the game, the answer is Jamal Shead. I agree with Peyton's point that he's the second best guard in this game. Second best guard in the country, excuse me. Big 12 player of the year for a reason. I got Houston.
I can't believe
whose guards are more talented? Did I hear that right? Whose guards are more talented?
Duke.
I think it's Duke's by a slight margin.
Yeah.
They're definitely more talented, but
I mean, if we look in 4 years and we see McCain, Proctor, and Roach versus Jamal Shead, Emmanuel Sharp, Damian Benner, Jake Cryer, I feel like the three from Duke are going to have better pro careers. Aside from maybe.
If you're talking. Okay. If you didn't say pro at all. So
okay. Yes. I should have made that clear.
I mean, I guess it's just what you depend on, because if we're going to look up potentially that, the three that you mentioned at the top there, right? The former could potentially be national champions. Like I think that's the ceiling Houston has. But I'll agree to disagree there. Here I won't. There's nothing I can add to this that would make like the prediction part of it any different. So here's what I'll say to back up everything everyone said. When I prepared a lay a stinker for every region, and I forgot to bring it up before. So, because I really struggled with some of these, I think it was a good question. Lay a stinker, I went with Duke in this region. Duke has not beaten a higher seeded team since 1994. Obviously, let's be real, they've been the higher ranked team a lot of times, but let me give you some facts to back it up. March 26, 1994, Grant Hill led 2-seeded Duke to a win over Glenn Robinson and the 1-seeded Purdue in the Elite Eight. That was the last time that Duke beat a higher seeded team. Since then, they're 0-5 against higher seeded teams. 2003 versus number 2 Kansas, 13 against number 1 Louisville. Well, interesting one to think about. 2016 against Oregon, number 1 there. 2018 against number 1 Kansas, and 2023 against number 4 Tennessee. There are 3 1 seeds I just named in that part right there. Houston's not breaking the streak. They're not losing this game. They're going to absolutely bully ball them and destroy them. And Kelvin Sampson, talk about coaching experience in some of these games, coaching matchups. He has the clear advantage against Coach Shire.
I agree. Houston wins this game. I can't believe of all people, I'm the one that kind of like the Duke defender and the idea that they're going to keep this close, because Emmanuel Sharp has a career night and he's capable of putting up 15, 16 points. But if you look at his season, there's a lot of like 6 points, 9 points, 7 points. That leaves only Sharp and, or not Emmanuel Sharp, I'm sorry, that leaves LJ Cryer and that leaves Jamal Sheed to have to kind of carry that load if Sharp's not contributing. And that goes back to the Duke guards, the way they've been playing. All I'm saying is I think Duke keeps this closer than the 3 of you think. But ultimately, I think Houston wins because they are so tough. They're going to get like a loose ball that changes the possession arrow, or they're going to get an off at the rebound or something of that nature that'll win them the game. But I think Duke's going to keep this close. I really, really believe in that. I think Duke keeps this close. The other game in the South region here, North Carolina State, Marquette. We know what DeRose says. He thinks Marquette's going to dog walk them. I think NC State is almost like a team of destiny right now. I thought maybe in this first weekend that it would run out, because we've seen it so many times before where a team gets hot, wins their conference tournament, gets in as the NCAA tournament, and then lays an egg. They're not. Like, their guards are playing with all the confidence in the world. Like, they can actually like cut the nets down, which is crazy, but it's a good thing. And then DJ Burns, like Oso Ighodaro is going to have to try to defend DJ Burns on the interior. Good luck. Barbecue chicken time there. The only question I have is, can NC State guards continue to make shots? If they can continue to make shots the way DJ Burns is going to go for like 25 and 12 in this game, we could see another shocker here. But I think this is a good one. I don't think Marquette's are going to dog walk them, because I don't think they have any answer for DJ Burns. And watch the way he kicks out of double teams now. Oakland ran like 3 people out, and he's finding people in the corner. I think this is a tough matchup for Marquette if their guards do not play elite, because NC State guards, once again, are playing like they're the best players on the floor, and I love that extreme confidence. Trevor, this is your team. We heard what DeRosa said. He said he thinks your team's going to get dog walked. So tell him why he's wrong.
I'll tell him why he's wrong after if it goes the way he doesn't think it goes. But no, I'm trying to be an honest analyst. I really am. But I'm not going to sleep between now and Friday at 7:09. I just hope y'all understand. This is the biggest game, and I'm not like, and I appreciate the sentiment of like, I'm happy that you're excited, buddy. I'm happy that Josh is excited about it. I'm happy that the world is seeing what I've never seen in my entire life. Right in the video I posted, Michael was one of the first people to text me. 1987. My mom and dad were 17 years old when they won an ACC championship last time. By the way, my shirt's on the way. Hope to God it's here by Friday. I'll just say this. I'm not saying a word. Like, I filled out as we were going, like I just wanted to fill out my picks so I wouldn't forget. I left that blank for a reason. I'm not making a pick. I refuse to do it, and I wouldn't expect any of you to do it if your teams were in this position, because this is the most nervous I've ever been in 26 years for a game. 26 years on Thursday would be a hell of a birthday present on Friday. Okay? Like, I'm going to be real with you. I'm super, super nervous. Now, I understand that if this game was played earlier in the tournament with Kolek coming off an oblique, I know he healed well, whatever. Obliques are very re-injurable. So, obviously, seems to be they're fully healthy. I agree with Michael, though, on Oso being an incredible defender. And, like, I think that matchup's a lot more difficult for Burns than I think people, and Josh, like, just said, for giving him a little bit more credit there. I just want to make it abundantly clear how nervous I'm going to be for the next 72 hours. And that's, excited. I'm excited, and I'll be watching this in downtown, and I'll be going to Hillsborough Street if they win.
Peyton, if you're Marquette and Shaka Smart, are you running double teams, seeing that DJ Burns is sometimes finding them where he doesn't even look like there's a passing lane there to find people in the corners? Are you running the doubles still to get the ball out of his hands and risk having one of these guards being open for either driving lanes, straight line driving lanes, or open threes that they've been making? Or are you saying, I'm going to let DJ Burns go get his, and we're not allowing him to kick it out to the corner? How would you play it if you're Shaka?
I'd let DJ, let is a strong word, because whether you let him, try to stop him, he's going to get his, bro. Ain't nobody in the country. He's going to get back to that left hand, too. He's going to get back to that left hand. It's a crazy thing. Yeah, ain't nobody in the country that's going to stop him from getting what he wants. It's going to be barbecue chicken down there, whether they try to scheme up something, whether they try to double or just let him and just shut the guards down. Here's the thing. That's a tough question for me to answer. I am leaning more to just defend the guards and don't let DJ Horn and the rest of them go off and have a good night, especially shooting the ball from three. So I'd say shut them down. But here's the thing. I don't know where this game's being played at. It's being played in Dallas, Texas. Never mind.
It's in Dallas,
I see the Ken Bomb thing I have pulled up here. It's been playing in Dallas. Whoever's in Dallas, anytime DJ Burns catches the ball in the paint, he gets cheered more than anybody in the country. He's
the most lovable player.
He's the biggest, to all my wrestling fans out there, he's the biggest babyface in the country. And babyface means he's most beloved by everybody. Every time he touches the ball down the paint, the crowd just erupts. So
who don't love a big man that does what he does?
Exactly.
He's adorable. He's adorable. Yeah. And I'll just tell look, I'm sorry. I'm just going to be the fan for a second. I went to 17 games last year, guys. Last year, it was the same last year, and they had tournament expectations last year, right? In these random Detroit Mercy games in the non-con, they're throwing him the ball, and the 4,000 people that are there erupt. I mean, my wife, who is a fan by osmosis or by marriage, whichever term you would like to use, she loves DJ Burns. She can't stop talking about him. And that should just give you an idea. Someone who doesn't even care about the tournament cares about DJ Burns should show you how incredible of a story he is. And it really does. I just want you to know, win or lose, no matter when they go out the next 4 games, I'm going to cry when he walks off the floor for the last time.
And when you watch it, North Carolina State are about to take the floor and he's bopping his head, listening to music, smiling, rapping. He's awesome, man. He's awesome. This is a hard one because something in my brain tells me North Carolina State wins this game for the reasons I laid out. The smart money says Marquette wins. That's who I'll go with. But something in my brain tells me North Carolina State is on a run of a lifetime and Marquette just has a hard time. They can't make their mind up is what my brain's telling me. They don't know whether to double and then worry about the kickouts or to let him go to work. I think I'll say Marquette to be safe. I think North Carolina State wins this as a shocker.
So go ahead.
You go, Peyton.
Okay, I'll go. 2 points on this. I don't think any team is probably feeling pressure in this game because NC State's definitely not feeling pressure because hell, 2 weeks ago, they weren't even supposed to be in this damn tournament. And now they are. So they've exceeded their expectations. Or any expectations that they've had on them pitting into this tournament, they've exceeded that. They got to the Sweet 16. Congrats to Kevin Keats. But I don't think Marquette has any pressure at all because, like DeRosa mentioned when he first talked about this game, this is the first time that Shaka Smart has made the Sweet 16 since they went to the Final Four in 2011, I believe. So it basically ended those whole talk that he can't get it done in March because clearly he's got it done now and he has a really good team. And I think defensively, they're going to have a tough time guarding DJ Burns, even though Iguodala is a really good defender. He's not going to be able to stop him one-on-one. They're going to have to do something, it seems like. But again, NC State defensively, they're going to have trouble keeping up with Marquette and their pace and the spacing on the floor when they play. It's so beautiful. I think Marquette's going to win this game, but I do think if it's under 4 and NC State's close, it's going to be an intriguing game. And Trevor is probably going to be the most nervous he's ever been in his entire life. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. I want him to be nervous because it's a good nervous. I'm happy for him. I'm happy that his team's in this position. But I do think Marquette wins a close one, though. It should be entertaining. It should be an intriguing matchup. Go ahead, DeRosa.
Yeah, I'm very happy for my friend Trevor. I'm very happy his team got here. I'm very jealous as well. In the kind of jealous way, though.
And I know it's about to come as soon as you said that.
Yeah. I just want to make a point Josh made earlier on Marquette, how they defend Burns. Marquette actually defends in scrambles really well. It is a 4.5.
6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
6.5.
Marquette defends really well in scrambles. Their scramble defense has actually been really good down the stretch. I think that's kind of what propelled them to stay alive in the Big East tournament as long as they did. They would double down, and then they do a really good job scrambling, finding their man, finding matchups, whatever. 1 point. The other point Josh made earlier was if Marquette's guards don't play elite, then they could be in trouble. Are you asking Tyler Kolek, who we just all agreed earlier is the best point guard in the country, to not play elite? Because that
I don't mean Kolek. He's going to play good, but well as I do, and we'll move on from this. As great as Cam Jones is, as great as he is, and as much of a microwave he is, if he doesn't make his first couple, he's more likely to go 3 of 16 from the floor than he is to rally back and end up 9 of 12 or whatever. That's what I'm saying. And turn the ball over.
See, fair. Turn the ball over. I don't know if I agree entirely with that, but I can see your point about him being a microwave. But what I will say is I think this matchup plays exceedingly well into how Marquette likes to run guys off of dribble handoffs, ball screens, and all that stuff, and getting guys open back door. I think they will have that look all game long. And I think that could be something that, let's say Jones misses the first 2 threes, but then they get him 2 backdoor layups. Those could be the things that get him going, that take him out of maybe that little rut he's in. Then he hits a step in 3, and then it's ooh, okay, Cam Jones woke up.
As much as I love Oso Ighodaro, the bigs have been playing. We talked about Burns for 40 minutes already. The bigs have been incredible. Ben Middlebrooks has his career high in round of 64. And to DeRosa's point, Casey Morsell can't guard Tyler Kolek and Cam Jones. He just can't. He's the best perimeter defender and really the only one that I'm willing to rely on in clutch moments. He's a huge reason why they win in that Oakland game. And it's just to Michael's point, I'm surprised it's not more than 6.5.
Well, I tell you what's not surprising here, and that is our words from our friends over at Rhythm. Here's a quick note from our friends over at Rhythm. What a tournament it has been, and it has been a good one so far. The unpredictability, the upsets, and all-around madness. For our listeners who sports bet, what if AI could help you craft awesome picks and help you win some bets? Sounds too good to be true, right, DeRosa? Well,
yes, it does, sir.
Well, enter Rhythm, the AI sports betting app for player props and game picks. Rhythm stands at the forefront of innovation, offering sports enthusiasts a cutting-edge tool to elevate their bracket building experience. The app leverages data sets, historical trends, player statistics, and more to help craft the perfect picks for you. Download Rhythm, create your account, generate your AI picks for this week's games. Sign up on the house page or link in the House Enterprise bio and Twitters to get started on Rhythm-built picks that help you conquer March. House Enterprise and Rhythm are not responsible for any lost wages on picks made. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem, DeRosa? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Again, shout out to our friends and sponsors for March here over at rhythm.com. Go download the app. We all did AI generated brackets using Rhythm, and we had some pretty wild AI generated ones that showed
mine had Wisconsin in the title game.
Yeah, had Wisconsin in the title game losing by 3 to UConn. So Rhythm's awesome for that stuff. Go download Rhythm. You can find the link in the house bio on Twitter. So go check out our friends over at rhythm.com for that. Let's move on, should we? Let's move on just the region down. Let's go to the Midwest region. Obviously, we talked about it with Eric Haslam. Purdue had a favorable path, and they've just beat the hell out of both teams they played. By the way, Haslam's like a wizard, because he predicted Oakland would beat Kentucky. He had NC State going to the Elite Eight, which is still possible. He had Duke making a run because he favored them in his analytics earlier in the year, and they're still alive. He said Purdue would make a run. He had Gonzaga beating the hell out of Kansas and then beating Purdue, which we got in the Sweet 16. I think Haslam's a wizard, and somebody needs to check on him to make sure he's not like somebody from the 1700s or 1600s from Salem there. We might have another witch crisis on our hands, but no, shout out our good friend Eric Haslam at Haslam Metrics last week on the tournament show. He predicted all this.
To your point on Eric, I looked into it. Somebody was tracking all of the, I don't know if everybody, someone does this every year. They put in a bracket which by the way, I feel bad for not putting in my Rhythm bracket. I totally forgot to do it on Thursday, but someone basically screenshots every round how well each of the analytics sites are doing, and Haslam's included in that, and he's in the lead by a good margin over KenPom, over this, over that. The only team through the round of 32 that was competitive, or the only analytics site, excuse me, was the Net, which is kind of funny if you think about it. That Eric Haslam is the number one guy in analytics, and then the Net is number 2. I just thought that was crazy. Yeah, as of right now, the last time I checked, he's still. Shout out to the guy that does it on Twitter. I won't be able to pull it up in time, but whoever, if you see the tweet, repost it. It's incredible to see how well these guys are doing, and Eric's leading the way.
So let's go down to the Midwest. We all had, well, I think most of us had McNeese State as like that sexy upset.
I'm pretty sure everybody in the country had that.
And Gonzaga steamrolled them. And then they turned around and steamrolled Kansas. So I have a question for you guys. We were kind of not really in on Gonzaga all year. They weren't really a tournament team until they went to Rupp and beat Kentucky. They didn't win the WCC regular season nor the WCC tournament crown. So as a 5 seed, we were kind of like, this ain't a great Gonzaga team. But by God, have they got it figured out in Mark Few, because these guards are playing elite. They will hone in. You want to know how great Mark Few is? He did it at Kentucky. He did it to Kansas. When he finds out something's working, like a middle pick and roll, he will abuse you until you figure it out. And neither team has figured that out so far. Gonzaga rolls to the Sweet 16. Anything besides Gonzaga in this region stands out to you at all?
Someone else can go. I'm looking at something.
Yeah, America is a loser for having that Samford BS call go against them. It's an anticipation call. We're all winners, losers. We haven't done that a ton today. America's a loser for having to deal with that game. And another thing in this region is I'll give you a winner as well. I wrote down because I prepped the schedule that was sent to me. The Oregon Creighton game. We're all winners for staying up and watching that game. That was honestly the game of the tournament potentially as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh man, Oregon almost pulled a North Carolina State, getting hot there at the right time. Yeah, Buckyball, man. Buckyball's so fun. Like somebody like I thought it'd be Vanderbilt. They didn't end up going that way, but there's going to be in the next year or two some high major that picks up Bucky McMillan, and they're going to run this pressing up and down, shooting a ton of threes offense, and they're going to shake whatever conference he goes to up. They probably should have, at the very least, went to overtime with Kansas. At the very least. It was clean. Like, it was clean. We'll put it that way.
It was 100% clean. That's coming from the Kansas fan.
That was clean. But them's the breaks when you go get some blue blood sometimes, boys. Them's the breaks. I mean,
yeah.
DeRosa, anything from this side of the bracket here on the Midwest that stands out to you besides Purdue's dominance and how well Gonzaga's looked?
I thought the fact that Tennessee won while shooting 3 of 25 from 3.
Yes, that's wild.
That said something to me.
Yep.
This is a Tennessee team that we have, like, this is a game they would have lost over the years. They don't shoot well. Their offense isn't really getting anything. You had not a great game from Dalton Connect. And the fact that they were able to find a way to win this game against a very talented Texas team, maybe not the most well-coached, but a very talented Texas team. I think that says a lot about Tennessee and maybe how this Tennessee team could be a little different than the ones in years past. That's my main takeaway.
Big loser. Trev gave the biggest kind of winner, and I agree with that, the Oregon Creighton game of this bracket. The biggest loser to me, and it's not individually pointing this kid out, but we talked about it, their last shot taking in college basketball. Texas has a chance to tie the game or cut it to 1 with plenty of time, and Max Absmus falling away in the corner, rush bad 3. College basketball players, use your IQ. If you get to the line, make a 2, you're down 1 with 9 seconds to go. You can extend the game, then you can try a 3. But come on, man. Like, you got to get a better look than that. Falling away and contested. Come on. That's my biggest loser of this bracket. Peyton, I know you were thinking, when you look at this, man, a lot of, at least that top side, Purdue, Gonzaga, and we'll talk about that in just a second, but they look so good. I cannot wait till Friday night on that Sweet 16 matchup. Both of those teams just ran through their 2 competition.
That game against Utah State, Utah State had the lead like 28-27 or something like that early in the first half. And then Purdue just boat race, beat the living shit out of them in the second half. They were up 40 points at one point in this game. I mean, I posted it on our Facebook group and kind of got a little flack for it, and I understand why. I get it. After Purdue lost to Wisconsin in the semifinal of the Big Ten tournament, I'm like, this loss just makes me more confident that Purdue can make a run. And it's kind of showed. Now they know that their next loss was going to be their final loss. It's going to be the final game of the season. And they've got a really good team. The guards has been the difference maker this year. Braden Smith has played like an all Big Ten first team type of player this season. He's been a huge difference maker. And if they can continue to hit shots, Zach Edey's going to dominate the paint like he always does. They draw the most fouls in the country, whether it's actually a foul or not. They do. That's a fact. They're a tough team to beat. Like, you really have to play well for 40 minutes if you really want to upset them. And that's really – Tennessee did the exact same thing to St. Peter's. A lot of this region held chalk. Outside of like Oregon and South Carolina being really the only upset, Gonzaga beating the shit out of Kansas is not an upset. This region really held chalk. So other than obviously the Gonzaga run and Purdue just beating the shit out of everybody, that's really the only thoughts I have in this region.
I'll give you an overarching thought because I don't have anything either, and I'm 130, and we're not even on the West. The Leia Stinker thing, right? Would we all be not surprised whatsoever if any four of these teams laid a dud? Like, I think that's the four of the most like high swing, high ceiling, low floor kind of thing.
I'd be surprised if Creighton lays a dud. I don't think they win.
I wouldn't either.
Later, but I don't think they lose by like 20.
Here's what, and we'll go ahead and get into it because that's a good segue into that game. Sweet 16 game, 3-seed Creighton, 2-seed Tennessee. God, another late tip, 10:09 on Friday night.
I hate it, man.
Regardless, this should be a phenomenal game. Here's why I'm worried Creighton will lay a stinker. We know how elite Tennessee's defense is. Elite defense. They are a deeper team than Creighton. So my fear is the way Tennessee hard hedges ball screens, the way they're physical on the backboard, the way that their guards, especially as Zakai Ziegler for his small stature and height, plays like a 6'9" kind of guard with his heart and all that. The way he can get up in you and really kind of funnel you in any direction he wants to go. They will run traps sometimes off of ball screens instead of just hard hedging. They'll trap it to try to make you panic. I'm worried if Creighton doesn't hit, like if if Shireman, if Trey Alexander and them's not hitting shots, this could get ugly fast because Tennessee, we know, can score the basketball now with Dalton Knecht and company. They're shooting the ball better than they have, maybe in the Rick Barnes era. I'd have to go back and look, but that defense could give problems. If Creighton goes on a spell, let's say like a 6-minute dry spell, and Tennessee can, put the ball in the bucket themselves, I think it could get real ugly for Creighton. So that's why I'm in agreement with Trev. I think Creighton's probably the most susceptible to like a stinker in this region here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Tennessee wins the game for just about every point you made. The only thing I will add to it is, you mentioned Ziegler. I think he can really disrupt Ashworth. I think the athletes Tennessee has can really disrupt Creighton, especially in the Farabello minutes, just because then rather than putting Vescovy maybe on a Mason Miller, which could create some problems, you can put Vescovy on Farabello, and then you can have JJJ or whoever, another one of the wings, checking Alexander, and then connect Shireman. You can go with that matchup there. I don't think that's like a matchup Tennessee can take super advantage of. And I think you're right with the physical play. And I think in turn with how Creighton plays drop coverage and ball screens, I think that little floater will be open all game. And I don't think Tennessee's going to be afraid to take it. And then if they try to overhelp, you can kick it to shooters in the corner. Someone like a Jordan Gainey could have a good game in this spot too. So yeah, I'm with you. That was a good point. That makes sense. And I had Tennessee by about 7-10. The only bet I've placed in this round is Tennessee. I got Tennessee at -2. I think Tennessee wins this game. I'm fairly confident in that. And Josh made me a little more confident.
I look for Toby Awaka to have a big game.
I love him. Yes.
Toby Awaka, I think, is prime because, again, Creighton's – who are they going to put on him that's going to match like that physicality? He's not a great jump shooter, but if he's open, he's capable enough to knock one down, and he's going to crash the offensive glass. I would not be surprised, fellas, if finally Santiago Vescovy does not have one of those games that we've seen his first 3 years prior to this year where he has like 15 points and all 5 threes. Would not be surprised. I like Tennessee. I won't say big, but big enough for a 2-versus-3 game. I think Tennessee wins by like 9 points in this game. Trev, who do you got and why?
I'm going with Tennessee because I picked them to make the national championship game against UConn. I'm going to stick to that. But also because I think ultimately this is the most experienced, veteran-ridden, offensively talented Tennessee team. It's the same point I've been hammering all year. And I'll side with the team that has Dalton Knecht versus the team that doesn't.
I agree. Peyton?
Yeah, give me the Vols. Creighton does a terrible job at forcing turnovers. Even though they got a top 25 defense, they don't force a lot of turnovers. And in this game, I feel like you're going to have to. You're going to have to push the pace and not let Tennessee's defense get set up, because when it gets set up, it's stifling. And in a game like this, I trust guards more than I trust big men. Cockman is definitely going to be the best big man on the floor. But give me Tennessee's guards over Creighton's. Sky Ziegler and Dalton Connect. I'll take them over Ashworth and Trey Alexander any day of the week. And with Vescovi, you mentioned him. He can go for 15 in all threes. He can be the difference maker on this one. Give me the Vols.
Not only is Creighton the worst, or not only, I just spoiled my own point. Not only is Creighton bad at not turning the ball, not getting turnovers or forcing them, they are dead last. So I was making sure I saw that number right on the screen. I'm like, wait a minute, are they really there? I can see the red, but then I looked at it a little better. So
yep. The other one, obviously the top part of this, we've got 1 seed Purdue, 5 seed Gonzaga. We talked about these two teams met up back in Maui on Monday, November 20th. Purdue wins by 10, 73-63. A lot of fouls called in this game in the first matchup. Different Gonzaga team, though. We've hammered that point home. This is a much different team since that win against Kentucky on the road in Rupp Arena. Is there a chance that Gonzaga takes down Purdue in the Sweet 16, and how is it done, DeRosa?
Is there a chance? Sure. Are they going to have to hit a lot of shots? They're going to have to avoid foul trouble. I think that is a lot easier said than done. I got Purdue.
Fair enough.
He just took everything I was going to say. Gonzaga's got to be able to hit shots. Zacky's going to play in drop coverage. He's not going to do what Hunter Dickinson was doing and hedging out, not hedging hard enough. He's going to play drop. They're going to have easy opportunities to score. They just have to convert him, and I don't trust they're going to. Purdue wins.
Trev, I take it you'll agree too?
Yeah, you've been doing pods with me long enough. Look, I've probably been the lowest on Gonzaga out of all of us all year. Why would that change now? As impressive as I think that McNeese State team is, they beat a beaten and battered Kansas team, Gonzaga did, and they beat McNeese State, who, outside of Shahada Wells, couldn't, really generate anything. So I'm not saying they haven't been impressive, but they haven't been impressive against a team like Purdue in this tournament, and I can't tell you that they haven't beaten a team like this since really at all. Actually, I'll be real now that I think about it. They really haven't beaten a team like Purdue all year. Like, I know the Kentucky thing, like, obviously knowing what we know now, that aged well in February, but knowing what we know now, they haven't beaten anybody this year at all. And why are they going to do it now in the Sweet 16? I get that the history's there and the Mark Few thing is there against Matt Painter, but I'm gonna side with the team that has Zach Edey versus the team that does not. Sorry, that's a beat point, but here it is.
9 straight Sweet 16s. That's incredible for Mark Few. I will say this. I asked for it. How do they do it? I will give a point, even though I think Purdue wins. Ben Gregg has been really good, especially late in the season, but in this tournament, he's made at least 2 3-point shots in both of the games. I think when he's in, they have to find the matchup where Edey's guarding him, pull him away from the rim. I don't know if that's ball screen and then however that works. Keep him away from the rim. I think he's got to hit some threes. Nolan Hickman and Ryan Nembhard. Nembhard, he carved Kansas up. Had like 9 assists by halftime, only like 5 points. He's going to have to score against Purdue. He's going to have to try to get assists as well, but he's going to have to score. I think they have to try to just wear Purdue's guards down because Edey's going to do whatever the hell he wants. I worry about Graham Ike in a game like this. I really do. Unless when Edey's off the floor, he's in and tries to go to work on some if Mason Gillis or Trey Kaufman-Renn or whoever's on him for physicality. I worry about him, but I think Nembhard, Hickman, if they can play well, keep the tempo up, and then guys like Ben Gregg, Anton Watson can able to step out and hit threes, pull Edey away from the rim. There's a lane there to win, but man, Purdue's too much. I'm going with the Boilers as well. Let's go down to our last region here, to the West region. Grand Canyon, I actually predicted that last week. I said that they would beat St. Mary's. I was never really a fan of St. Mary's. They're athletes. They have a shot to beat Alabama. They're the only real out-and-out upset that got through this region. So real quick, anything overarching from this region? Because, I guess the 2 big ones, right? Grand Canyon and Clemson in a way. Anything else that stands out to you?
Yeah, Clemson was not the favorite in that game, so that's an upset if we're being real. Clemson upset New Mexico. By the way, I'm still potentially able to get 3 teams in the Final Four, but damn did Mexico screw me. Goodness gracious. The Mountain West as a whole screwed me from just a talking about them all year standpoint, but my God, I saw this Clemson team beat North Carolina in the Dean Dome and still didn't think New Mexico was going to lose that game. That surprised me. They were the betting favorite. I'm just floored by it. I really am.
Yeah, New Mexico looked like shit. Their guards couldn't do anything, and the PJ Hall was just excellent. And in the second
I
game,
said that was going to be the difference maker. He had to be,
and he was. And then in game 2,
Do you
Chase
remember
Hunter.
that, real quick, do you remember that quote when we wrapped up doing the West last week and we all picked New Mexico and we were all so confident? I said, now watch, we've all picked New Mexico. That means Clemson's going to show up and actually probably win. Didn't believe it, but they actually showed up this last weekend. That's crazy.
Yeah. And want to real quickly give Chase Hunter in that second game. He was magnificent. He was the best guard on the floor, and he was going up against Ray J. Dennis. Langston Love did not play, but he was still going up against really good guards. Trevor seemingly had the same takeaway. Yeah. Chase Hunter was absolutely excellent. He did everything possible Clemson could have asked for him. He was just brilliant. He won them that game. Full credit to Chase Hunter. He was the best. That was a game where PJ Hall and Ian Shefflin got in foul trouble, meaning that's not Clemson's front court was gone, and they went on a run in that time. That was because Chase Hunter was excellent. He was absolutely magnificent. Shout out to Chase Hunter. He was great.
Here's what's crazy. I'll read it really quick because I did have this down, and I'm glad you mentioned him. For those that didn't realize, they don't win the Baylor game. Like, he had, I'll just read it, 21 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 50, 25, 57 splits against New Mexico. He had 26 and 21, and 2 steals, excuse me, not 21 steals, and 50, 60, 50, 60, 87. So 1 point difference. The difference was he shot a ridiculous efficiency against Baylor, and they don't win that game without a basically a carryover performance. Despite what the 20 points said, he shot so terribly in the New Mexico game. He was obviously very good. PJ Hall, as DeRosa said, was the reason that they won the game, but like, they don't win that game if he doesn't shoot that well against Baylor. They just don't. And the fact that it's the same exact game, basically impact for impact from a stat standpoint, the splits were eye-opening to me. And that's honestly, like, give him credit for helping beat New Mexico, but give him even more credit for taking down Baylor because it had to be efficient to get the game done, get the job done, and he did it.
The biggest winners of this region was the Grand Canyon fans. They turned that building up in Spokane like it was a home game in Phoenix. That was an amazing environment for those 2 games. So shout out to the Grand Canyon fans that made the trip and made that lively. Let's get into the Sweet 16 matchups. 1 seed North Carolina, 4 seed Alabama. When Max was on, he previewed it a little bit. High tempo, high pace. Watching RJ Davis go head to head with Mark Sears, this should be a ton of fun. Fellas, answer me this with a yes or no. First one to 90 points wins this game.
Yes, and that will be UNC.
First one to what? First to what number?
First one to 90 points wins this game.
Oh, I was going to say first one to like 139, but yeah, that's fair too. Yeah, that works.
Well, we keep it a little moderate sometimes around here. Peyton?
I think it's going to be low scoring than that. UNC's defense is actually top 10 in the country. They can actually defend when they want to. Alabama can't. They don't want to. Not only can they not play defense, they don't want to. So I don't think Carolina might get to 90, but Alabama ain't getting to 90. I think this game's going to be low 80s, high 70s. I don't think either team will get to 90. And if it does, if you want me to ask the question or answer the question, I think North Carolina will be the first team to 90. But North Carolina's defense is just so much better. Their guard play is better. I like North Carolina in this one.
There's been 3 losses this year. Well, I guess 4, the Clemson one. So of Alabama's 11, only 4 losses have they been held under 80 points. 77 against Clemson, 74 against Arizona, 71 against Tennessee, and then 74 against Tennessee. All 4 of those teams are still left in the NCAA tournament. Clemson, Tennessee twice, and Arizona. 3 of those teams. All 3 of those teams twice to Tennessee, you know what I mean. They're all left. So Alabama can score, and I think they're going to score in North Carolina's defense. Even though it's improved, I think Alabama's going to hit shots. The tempos should be insane in this game, even when it has to slow down in the half court. Mark Sears, we know what he can do. We know what RJ Davis can do. Again, it's going to come down to role players in a way. Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram, and then I think a guy like Sam Walters, if it gets up and down high flying, I think Sam Walters for Alabama could step up and have a couple of huge buckets, maybe 2, 3, 4 threes, whatever the case may be. I think it's going to be a highly entertaining game that I do think at the end of the day, because Carolina has proven they are more willing to get defensive kills, which is 3 stops in a row. That'll be the difference at some point through this game. Carolina gets a couple defensive kills, pulls away just enough. Carolina wins, but I think we're set for an entertaining, high-scoring affair that North Carolina wins because of their defense at the end. Are we all going North Carolina, or is anybody brave enough to pick Alabama in this game?
I've hated Alabama all year, so no.
Peyton went with North Carolina. And then the other one, 6-seeded Clemson versus 2-seeded Arizona. I think, listen, Clemson's been an amazing story, right? They've been awesome. But have you seen what Arizona's been doing? I know they kind of played with their food a little bit against Dayton. Dayton put that press on. They got a little shaky with the press. But once they reestablished control, there was no looking back. I see no difference. I mean, they've got inside play. They've got guards. I think it's just, we've talked about Arizona all year. How well do their guards play consistently will be the difference. Clemson, maybe on the backboards, can give them some issues. But I just don't see a road to hoe where Clemson gets this one done without Arizona putting some numbers up on them. I think Arizona wins fairly comfortable at the end in this one.
Here's a take. I think good Arizona is the best team in the country. When Arizona is on, I do not think there's a team in the country better than them. How often do we get good Arizona? Not very often. And does Arizona make some mind-numbingly dumb mistakes? Absolutely. But when Arizona is on, they are tough to beat. And I think this is a spot game for Arizona. I think this is a perfect spot game.
Kashad Johnson, big game.
Yeah.
Kashad Johnson's about to go for like a 20-piece.
Yeah. I think this is a good matchup for Arizona. I got Arizona. Arizona's going to be a team I picked to do things. I like Arizona. I'll end that there.
Peyton, who you got? Clemson, Arizona.
Trevor can go ahead first. Seems like he wanted to talk. Go ahead, Jeff.
I didn't know where DeRosa was going at the end there. That's all I was going to say. I'm still thinking, so go ahead.
Shit, I was hoping you would go because I'm still thinking as well.
Okay, well, I'll just say it. I think Arizona played with their food too much last game, and I think they're too susceptible. They're too susceptible to it, and that's what happened. I'm going to call to a game that I've talked about all year that I went to. Carolina played with its food against Clemson. Like, they, in the Dean Dome, like, that game, Clemson got obviously hot at the beginning, but Carolina, like, didn't take that game seriously. And we saw that, and some of the stuff in the postgame told me that. Like, I just don't know. I'm not going to be shocked if Clemson gets this done. I'm really not. I think PJ Hall, Ballow's going to have to guard PJ Hall outside of 10 feet. Like, that's important, right? Gerard was the guy that people crapped on last round and was like, how is Gerard going to hold up or whatever? I think he held up decently fine, and I think he can do it here too. I know the guards are more athletic for Arizona, and that's really where I'm going to be worried. But if we're talking about Chase Hunter, like earlier, I can't say he can't be the biggest reason. He's more experienced than everybody on that floor. So I think Clemson can win this game. I don't even know what the spread looks like, but I think if Arizona's favored by more than 6, I think that's free money for Clemson's spread.
You know what? That's a good, compelling case, and maybe I was a little harsh on Clemson there. When Arizona, I agree with. I tend to agree somewhat with DeRosa when Arizona plays at the top and peak of their abilities, they are damn near unbeatable, and they're a 5-point favorite. Ken Palm's got them 79-74. So if it's that close, what have we said for this whole tournament and every tournament? If the game's close inside the last 3 or 4 minutes, the team that's expected to win will feel the pressure. Clemson just has to keep it close. They got to keep it close, force Arizona in some turnovers, make Caleb Love try to go hero ball, and you've got a shot. Caleb Love giveth, and Caleb Love will taketh away.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull the trigger on this one. I think Clemson wins this game. Joe Girard this is the type of game that he can really shine. PJ Hall, I think, is going to have a good one. The reason I'm picking this one, like DeRosa said that when they're playing at the best, Arizona is probably the best team in the country. I will agree with that. They probably have the highest ceiling in the country, but they also have a really low floor. And here's why. I don't trust Kellen Boswell. I don't trust him at all. You look at his last 5 games. His last 5 games, he scored 2 points against Dayton, 2 points, played 18 minutes in that game in the second round matchup. He scored 20 in this first round matchup, but they didn't really play anybody. Played Long Beach State. The last game of the regular season against Oregon, which they lost, he scored 4 points. He scored 2 points against USC, 5 points against USC, scored 10 points at UCLA. He's been so off this late half of the season. He had a really good start to the year. Played really well when they went at Duke and beat them and came in indoor. He's so up and down. It's more down this late half of the season. I don't trust him. I like I like Caleb Love, but again, I don't trust him at all. I don't trust Arizona's guards. I don't trust Pele Lawson. I don't trust this team to get done in March. I think Clemson wins this game. I'm pulling the trigger on it.
Normally, though, with a roller coaster, you only can stay down so long before you have to come back up. That means Kylan Boswell is due for a good game. He's due for a good game. Well, I think it's an interesting game. I like Arizona's overall depth. I mean, Omar Ballo is going to eat, I think, down low. Could be wrong. I think he's going to eat, though.
Here's Arizona's one compelling case, and not to be the cliche thing that's on the screen in red, but Clemson cannot generate turnovers. I feel like we talked about it today. Like, I knew that before we even put this on the screen. Like, it's a glaringly obvious weakness for them. They don't have the type of guards that can do that. They have the type of guards that control their own turnovers. They have a type of guards that if they can keep control of this game and not let Arizona, like, take control of the tempo, I think Clemson can win the game. The problem is I just don't know how plausible that is if Caleb Love. Obviously, we know, talk about roller coaster. That's a player right there that I think could have. He hasn't had a down game in a while in a consistent time period, and I just don't. I mean, we're due for a Caleb Love stinker. Chase Hunter's a really capable defender. I don't see why he can't lock up Caleb Love. Obviously, they played against each other in the ACC too. There's some history here with Caleb Love and Clemson. I just don't know why Clemson can't win this game. And again, if I'm, no gambling advice here, disclaimer. But if Clemson's, I can't make this clear enough. If Clemson's spread is anything more than 6, which I think Arizona probably is favored by 4 to 6 or more. I would see it. Obviously, somebody can pull it up, but I think it's free money. Clemson keeps this really close regardless. If you're just a bettor, that's where you want to be.
Let's start landing this plane here. Bold prediction time. Bank on it, as we call it. It's a favorite segment around here that we like to do. We haven't done a whole lot this year, but bank on it time. Sweet 16, Elite 8 prediction times. DeRosa, this is your first ever bank on it. I got it highlighted in the format. It is a bold prediction. Now, I know with a lot of chalk, maybe it's a little harder to do it like a bold prediction. And I will lead off to start. Illinois comes out of the East. They are going to beat Iowa State. They'll pull away from them late. They are going to get UConn in the Elite 8, and they are going to beat Connecticut by 10 points. They make the Final Four, and they go through the reigning champs and knock them out by 10 points or more. I love Illinois. I love their upside. They've got the best offensive player in the country left in this tournament, and there's something special about Illinois. They are going to the Final Four, and they're taking UConn down by double digits to do so. Bank on it.
Go ahead, Russell. Show them what you got. Be brave. Come on. Go some
How
balls here.
bold would it be to say Arizona is a team in the Final Four? Is that enough of a counter, or is that?
I mean, that's fine. No, that's
with
fine.
all this chalk. I think anything's fair game at this point. It sucks.
Yeah,
Josh took the only one that we were all thinking, and I knew he was going to do it, so I had to prepared because I wrote down verbatim. There's Phil. I wrote down verbatim. I've been on Illinois all year, so the fact that I'm not surprised Josh made the pick. It is what it is.
Can I issue a counter on this one?
I have one.
Well, I added the caveat though of beating UConn by 10 more. That's probably the boldest part of that. Yeah.
Yep, that's good.
The bold I was going to add was Arizona wins both games by double digits.
There you go.
That's
perfect.
good. I like that.
Okay.
That's better.
Perfect.
Arizona
bank on it. You got to bank on it.
Say it.
Bank on it.
There you go. There you go.
Damn.
Go ahead, Trev.
While I would love to venture my way into the South region, I'm going to turn the plane the other direction. I'm turning this car around. I think that Clemson, it makes the Final Four out of the West.
I like it. I like it. Peyton, take his North Carolina State one. Do it for him.
I'm not doing that.
Thank God.
I'm not doing that.
You voodoo doll ass. Don't do it.
I'm not. Listen, I believe in those superstitions as well. Josh jinxed my team because he bet on Kansas.
He jinxed
Hey, hold on. To be fair, I have to. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to say it. Never mind.
The motherfucker said Butler's guaranteed to make the tournament, and they didn't win a fucking game after that.
That's so funny.
Thanks, Burton.
Listen.
Dickhead.
Well,
it would have been good for Michael's meat. Whatever, who cares about Michael's tournament game?
I must work for Trevor because what is it, like 4 games in a row now? I said, they're going
shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, please, shut up, please, shut up, please.
Get to your bank on
every one of our teams but yours, Trev. You're next.
Please shut up, please, shut up.
I've got 2 bank on it. Trev kind of always said, I'm not going to say Clemson gets to the Final Four, but I will say Clemson beats Arizona and Joe Girard goes for 30 in that game. I think that happens. I think that happens. I think that happens. He goes for 30.
10.
In front of 29, almost 3,000 people.
He's going for 30 in that game, and they're beating Arizona. That's a bank on it. going up to the East region. Y'all are so high on Illinois, but they got to get past Iowa State. I think Iowa State beats Illinois. They beat UConn. They go to the Final Four, and neither one of those teams scores over 65 points. Bank on it.
I like it. Riding that Big 12 wave. I like it.
Defense Best conference in college basketball.
Let's wrap this up. I do have one non-tournament thing. We'll make this real quick and land the plane. 3,000 people. My God, my mind is blown right now. Thank you, guys. Last thing, let's close this out. One piece of news. Dusty May. In a surprise to a lot of people, Louisville thought they had him signed, sealed, and delivered in like the 11th hour. He goes to Michigan. So let's rate this hiring by the Wolverines grade-wise like you're in school. A+ being the absolute best, all the way to an F. DeRosa, rate the hire for Michigan of Dusty May.
B+, somewhere around that range in my mind.
That's what I'm going. Full disclosure, I'm going with a B+ because I think it's a good hire, but he's got to prove a lot at the bigger conference, how recruiting, dealing with the bigger NIL. But I think obviously he's a good coach, so I think it's a good hire.
At Michigan, another thing is, how can you use the transfer portal? Because Michigan, Juwan Howard had TJ Shannon, and then he would have had
Caleb Love.
Yeah, and now he didn't
get Dickinson would have stayed. He already said
yeah. So how do you manage that? I think that's also tough, and I don't think that's something enough people have talked about yet. So I'm going to go with a B, good hire, and the fact that they stole him from Louisville probably bumps my grade up a little bit. The fact that they were able to win him over. That's not like a shot at Peyton. That's like just genuine. Like
they were able to win him over. Yeah. For a steal, because I heard Louisville was going to offer like $5-6 million, and they got him for like 3.5 for 5 years.
For 5 years, yeah.
That's crazy. Trevor, rate that higher for Michigan. Dusty May.
Here's my problem: is the Michigan part of it makes the grade so difficult because it's the expectation of Michigan. And by the way, this is coming from a transplant Buckeye. To be clear, right? I'm married into an entire 75-year history of family of Buckeye. So I'm trying to take that out of it for a second. The problem for me is what I think of Dusty May, it's an A+. It's an A+ because this is a program that before he got here had not made the tournament since 2002. They were 15 seed. They were 19 and 12. They had not had a consistent, obviously they've only been in Division I since 1993-94, right? If this was a tenured program of 70 years as a mid-major and never really made the tournament once or twice, then I'd tell you it was an A++++. Like, I just would tell you that because he's the only guy that's ever got them there. But he got this freaking team to a 35-4 record. I don't care if it was the Conference USA. 25-9 this year on a little bit of a dud expectation year. It's an A+. The Michigan part, again, makes it really tough. I think for what I think about Dusty May, I just cannot believe the people, like I'll call them out, the Jaden Dailies of the world that are telling me that this is an awful hire and there's like 7 other people and telling me that there's 5 things that happened. He was like, what if this, and this didn't happen? FAU wouldn't be in this position. What if they didn't bring in Dusty May? They would be a terrible program and probably still be in the Conference USA, and they won 35 freaking games last year and made the Final Four, right? To tell me that 5 different things were going to happen to put them in this position, what if they don't hire Dusty May, for crying out loud? They're not in this position. They won more games in the last 2 seasons than they did in freaking 12 seasons before that. It's ridiculous, some of the discourse, and it's an A+.
I like it. Peyton?
If you would have worded this question any differently, you said, rate this higher from Michigan, and that's very tough for me. If you would have said, rate Dusty May going to Michigan, then this grade would have been a lot higher than I anticipated, because I think he fits Michigan a lot more than what he would if he went to Louisville. He fits Michigan down there. There's no expectations, really. It's a football-dominant program, and also, not saying he'll make any excuses, but he does have an built-in excuse with the academics and NIL not being the greatest, mainly going to football. So here's a couple things he can back off there. I think he's a good coach. I think it's going to take him a long time before he gets Michigan back to where they were when John Beilein was there. I'm giving this a C+.
Unless he brings John L. Davis, Elijah Martin.
I don't think he will. Because, again, it goes to academic issues. It's going to be trouble for them getting anybody in the transfer portal. Like, I think he'll probably get a couple of those guys, but I don't think he's going to get Elijah Martin. I definitely don't think he's going to get John Davis. Like, they're probably going to go to, like, a Kansas or, like, a bigger program, especially John L. Davis.
Well, we'll see. Last thing, and I just want to name, because we got to wrap this up. Since Louisville did not get Dusty May, and that seemingly was their number one option, Louisville's next head coach, throw one name out. No, you don't have to explain it. One name. Trevor, who is Louisville's next head coach?
I sat here for hours since you sent this and tried to think of the best answer, but all of the best answers have already gotten jobs. So I'm going to tread very carefully on this because I'm still trying to find something out about this situation. I think it's Pat Kelsey.
DeRosa, Louisville's next head coach.
Is Pat Kelsey? Should be. I would look to a proven head coach at a lower job like a Will Wade or a Sean Miller. But
I agree. It's Will Wade, by the way, is my real answer. But I'm just telling you, like, just keep an eye on Pat Kelsey in the next 24 to 48 hours.
I think it will be Kelsey, but I have no fucking idea, man.
I'm going to say
Everyone's
Eric
wrong.
I'm going to say Eric Musselman. I don't think he wants to be at Arkansas anymore. His buyout is like under $1 million. Good recruiter. I think he'll energize that program with the energy. I'm going to go Eric Musselman as the new head coach of Louisville. Peyton, this is your team. End it the right way.
I hate all these picks, by the way. I'm sorry. I do. I mean, I feel like we're settling for anyone at this point, and it's ridiculous. I like Pat Kelsey, but he's got to prove that he can recruit, and he's had good success at Charleston and Winthrop. I know that. He has high energy.
He's a
Oh,
might fit
Cincinnati
in.
guy. Just keep that in mind. Not far down the road. He's
But
a Cincinnati
again,
guy.
like, I just don't trust him to change our whole program because it's a complete dumpster fire now. I mean, the guy from South Florida, Raheem. Sorry, I can't say his name properly. I've been hearing him. I don't want him. I'm hearing Shaheen Holloway. I don't want Shaheen Holloway. He's a Northeast guy. I don't think he'll fit. If it's my choice, Jerome Tank's my number one because I think his personality and everything just fits. I don't think Jerome Tank's coming, though, for some odd reason. I don't understand it. If we don't get this right, we need to fire Josh Hurt because he clearly has no fucking clue what he's doing whatsoever. And it's ridiculous. We're probably responsible for the worst hire in college basketball history with Kenny Payne, a dumpster fire. Now this wasn't his fault, but it was also responsible for probably the worst firing with Rick Pitino. Like, it's the only thing Josh Hurt's done great since he's been the athletic director is bringing Josh Baum to the football program. That's been great, and he's living off that. So if we can't get this figured out, it's ridiculous, and we need to do something with the athletic program. I think Will Wade's probably the answer. If it's not Jerome Tang, I think it's Will Wade. Hopefully,
Well, there you have
confident.
it. We appreciate. I can't believe my mind's going to say this. First of all, thank you, Seth Davis. You have no idea how much we appreciate this. 3,041 people tuned in for our show today. And I cannot, if you're not following us on the Twitter, where I'm sure you're watching us from, at ECB Podcast, go follow us. We have great content year round. We cover the sport. We do all these videos, our YouTube channel, where you can also find this. Just search up, Peyton, what is it? ECB 10 or ECB Podcast 10. I'm frazzled right now. Thank you to all of you. Guys, we've got 1 week into the NCAA tournament done. We're heading to the Sweet 16 Elite 8. A lot of great matchups. And then next time when we come at you next Monday, we'll have a Final Four set. We're heading down the home stretch of college basketball. We cannot thank you enough. For everybody here at Everything College Basketball, for everybody here at our network over at House Enterprise and House of College Hoops, thank you so much. And we will catch you guys with another live episode when we preview the Final freaking Four. Same time next Monday. But until then, we hope you guys enjoyed the Sweet 16 action and then Elite 8 action this weekend, and we will catch you all down the road.
Clemson plus 6.5.